Chapter 51. That evening, Hal found Fairy Tale's special dragon carriage near the ruins of President Bob's villa, as well as Jura and others. It is worth mentioning that the council acted very quickly. After Nirvana stopped, almost all the 6 demon generals, including Jalal, were arrested before noon. It cannot be said to be all, after all, Blaine had been killed by Hal. I was scared to death. Fortunately, the dragon carriage was found, otherwise I really had to walk back. Natsu looked at the intact dragon carriage with a look of surviving a disaster. Ha ha ha, don't worry. When we were fighting, I used magic to move the dragon carriage in the air. Hal laughed. It's really Hal. Urza sat on the dragon carriage, enjoying the strawberry cake stored in the magic refrigerator, with a satisfied look on her face. Laxus was preparing black tea on the side, and Gray said goodbye to Leon, Jura, and others outside. Wendy sat next to Hal obediently, and Laxus poured her a cup of black tea considerately. I didn't expect you to know this, Laxus. Hal looked at him in disbelief. Fried knows a lot, I learned it from him. Why did you learn this? What do you care about me? Why don't you pour me a cup? Hal couldn't help protesting when he saw that everyone had black tea in front of them. Maybe this is the effect of my learning this. Laxus raised his eyebrows. What? You? The two continued to bicker, while Wendy watched it all quietly, her heart full of imagination for the future. Fairy Tale is famous in the kingdom of Fiori, and Wendy has long been familiar with many of them, such as Myra Jane, Urza, Laxus, Hal and Makarov, who are all famous wizards in the kingdom of Fiori. In order not to immerse herself in sadness, Wendy tried to divert her attention. She smiled as Hal and Laxus bickered, drank a sip of black tea, and tasted a bite of strawberry cake. Delicious. Wendy took only one bite, and her eyes immediately turned into stars, as if she had been captured by this delicious strawberry cake. Right. Urza took a break from her busy schedule and gave a thumbs up. Of course, this is what I carefully selected. Wendy, take your time, there are still many in the magic refrigerator. Hal smiled proudly, and glanced at Laxus provocatively. Brother Laxus's black tea is also very good, so amazing. Can you teach me when we go back? Wendy asked obediently. Ah, of course. Laxus replied coldly, but the pride at the corner of his mouth could not be hidden. Stinky cool. Hal silently complained in his heart. Not long after, Gray and Lucy also got in the car, and the group left President Bob's villa. Speaking of which, you took a really long time to say goodbye. Natsu lay on the table board, still far away from Magnolia at this moment. Ask Lucy. Gray glanced at Natsu and said. Lucy. Natsu looked at her in confusion. Ah, I'm really lucky this time. I got 3 zodiac star keys. Lucy proudly showed the 3 golden keys in her hand. 3? Zodiac. Everyone looked at her in surprise. Yes, Aries Aries, Gemini Gemini and Scorpio Scorpio. Lucy introduced to everyone with a smile. That's amazing, Lucy. But what did you do? Why did you get 3 keys? Hal asked curiously. I'm so rude, of course it's my personality charm. Everyone came to me on their own initiative, after all, the angel has been captured by the council. Lucy responded unhappily. The king of picking up leaks. Natsu couldn't help but complain. Hey, Natsu, I seem to have seen the desire for self-satisfaction of humans. Happy echoed the ridicule. I heard it all. Well, actually Loki introduced them, and Aquia, and Scorpio is Aquia's boyfriend. Lucy explained. I see. Everyone suddenly realized. What? You really don't believe that my personality charm attracted them? Lucy was a little dissatisfied, but everyone just laughed. As night fell, Hal and his party stopped the car to rest, and it was not until the next morning that the dragon car slowly drove into Magnolia. However, when they arrived at the gate of the Fairy Tale Guild, not only Wendy and Xiaolulu, but also Hal and the others were all shocked by the scene in front of them and speechless. What's going on? How could our guild become like this? The old guild, which was originally 2 or 3 stories high, has now become a magnificent building more than 10 meters high. The guild building stands tall at the end of Magnolia, and the entire building is full of pure white, as if it were carefully carved from marble, exuding a solemn and sacred atmosphere. The towering tower points straight to the sky, and every detail shows the unparalleled skills of the craftsmen and the endless admiration of the citizens of Magnolia. There is even a thank you notice board hung by the citizens of Magnolia next to the building. At the top of the building, the fairy tale flag fluttered in the wind, but at this moment, everyone could only stand there in shock and speechless. Just then, Marcus, who was setting up a stall near the entrance of the guild, saw Hal and others, and greeted excitedly, "Hal, Elsa, you are finally back." "Marcus, what's going on? We have only been away for 4 days, why has the guild become like this?" Hal's face was full of confusion. Looking at the sales points of the surrounding guild peripheral products, the dazzling array of products attracted many citizens to come and buy, and even many citizens set up stalls to sell various specialty products, forming a lively small market. Even the usually taciturn Uncle Ika opened a stall here, smiling and greeting Hal and Natsu. "Not bad, Hal, this is something Makarov specifically asked me to renovate." How did you build such a big building in 4 days? Just entrust the Craftsmen's Guild. They are not only skilled, but also got a lot of magical instruments for infrastructure from the council. The guild was built in just 4 days. Of course, there is only one disadvantage, it is very expensive. How much did it cost? I heard from President Makarov that it was about 5 million J. 5 million J. Lucy was shocked, that's my rent for 70 years. Uncle Ika smiled and waved his hand, well, the guild has been rich for so many years, and the number of people has increased. It's time to expand. Uncle Ika joined Fairy Tale 5 years ago. In order to jointly maintain the business, Makarov gave him great support. The president is in there. I have to continue selling the specialties I got from my business trips. I won't go in with you. There are so many people here. Uncle Ika smiled and sat back in his chair. Hal and the others slowly walked into the familiar yet strange guild. Along the way, many guild members came forward to greet their return. Some people also noticed Wendy and Xiaolulu and showed curious eyes. Walking into the lobby on the first floor, the scene in front of them shocked them again. The original guild hall has now doubled in size, and the space is spacious and bright. On the second floor, Elfman was greeting them. The second floor is no longer restricted to magicians, and has become a huge billiard hall for everyone to relax and have fun. The third floor is an elegant indoor swimming pool, the fourth floor is an exquisite and quiet fairy tale special bath. And the fifth floor has become the guild's library, which houses a large number of precious magic books and ancient books, and is a treasure house of the guild's history and wisdom. Hal walked to Makarov with Wendy and Xiaolulu, while others looked around at the brand new guild. In the hall, a new stage was performing lively performances, and the guild members took turns to perform on stage, with wonderful performances. Makarov was drinking happily and laughing. "Keep playing the music, keep dancing. Don't stop, ha ha ha." Makarov shouted excitedly, obviously drunk. "President, I brought new people back, they came to join Fairy Tale." Hal stepped forward and said. "What? Hal is back?" Makarov was stunned for a moment, then reacted, and when he saw Wendy and Xiaolulu, his expression gradually softened. "Thank you for your hard work, Hal. Now the magic world will be peaceful for a while," Makarov said with a smile, and then turned to Wendy and Xiaolulu, "Welcome, Fairy Tale welcomes you to join." He then announced loudly, "The party is about to begin. Welcome Wendy and Xiaolulu, and congratulations to Hal and his team on their triumphant return." Cheers suddenly rang out in the guild. Kana and Levi happily took Wendy's hand, introduced themselves, and took them to the guild's big family. Although the appearance of the guild has changed dramatically, the warmth and joy here remain the same, and everyone is still that familiar big family. Chapter 52. That afternoon, Hal took Wendy and Xiaolulu to his small villa. There were many empty rooms on the first floor, just right for them to live in. "Thank you, Hal, but I'll just live in the girls' dormitory. I actually want to get to know everyone better," Wendy said shyly. "It doesn't matter. You can live wherever you want. The room with the best ventilation on the first floor is for you," Hal said with a smile, and threw a key to her. "Ah, thank you, Hal." Wendy hurriedly caught the flying key, looking a little at a loss. "By the way, this magic savings card is for you," Hal continued. "Ah, what is this?" Wendy took the card and was a little surprised. She had never seen such a card. "There is 1 million J in it. Spend it first." Don't refuse. Just think of it as my gift for you to join Fairy Tale. Hal explained with a smile. Ah, thank you, Hal. Wendy said shyly, her heart full of warmth. Hal's savings are close to 100 million J, and he also gave pocket money cards like this to Natsu and Kana. But Kana used all the money to buy alcohol, and Natsu often went to Lucy's place after he had money. As for Myra, she has been Hal's girlfriend for a long time. As a former S-class wizard, she is naturally not short of money, but often takes care of others. Just when Wendy had just put away the card, Myra's voice came from outside the door. Wendy. I'm here to see you. Here are some toiletries and some clothes I picked for you. Myra walked in with a smile, holding a few carefully selected girls' clothes in her hands. Most of the clothes are soft light blue and white, with fresh and cute designs, which are very suitable for Wendy's long blue hair. Come and try it on to see if it fits. Myra said, pulling Wendy into the room and letting her try on the new clothes. Wendy was a little shy, but under Myra's enthusiasm, she quickly put on the new clothes. The color of the clothes made her look more beautiful. Wendy looked at herself in the mirror and couldn't help but smile. The haze from a while ago seemed to be diluted a lot. Myra nodded with satisfaction and said softly, "You are so cute, Wendy." Wendy blushed slightly and responded softly, "Thank you, Sister Myra, I like these clothes very much." At this time, Hal's voice came from outside the door, "You try it first, I have to go back to the guild and treat you to dinner tonight." "Okay, Brother Hal." Wendy responded. Myra pouted her lips cutely and muttered, "Really, busy again. I will teach him a lesson when we meet in the evening." Wendy smiled and responded, "Okay, Sister Myra." Hal walked on the streets of Magnolia, and the crowd was bustling. Many citizens who knew Hal greeted him friendly, and Hal responded with a smile one by one. As a young Holy 10 wizard in the Fairy Tale Guild, everyone admired him very much. This time Hal had two tasks. The first is to build the guild's defense, which he has arranged for Fried and Levi to help, and it will take about 3 days. The second task is to find Mistin Gang. After all, he promised Wendy that he would help her figure out the relationship with Mistin Gang. Fortunately, Hal and Mistin Gang have been in frequent contact recently. Just a few days before Hal left, Mistin Gang was going to Bosco to stop Anima. Hal asked him to investigate the situation in Bosco, and the two agreed to meet at the guild in 7 days. When Hal arrived at the top floor of the guild, Hal saw that it was full of magic weapons and magic books. Fried and Levi were already waiting for him. "You are all here, Fried, Levi. Hal, long time no see. I was not in the guild yesterday. After you finish this matter, please be sure to talk to me about Laxus's performance during the crusade mission." Fried said excitedly. "It's a small matter." Hal smiled, then turned to Levi, "Levi, have you found the corresponding defensive spell magic book?" "Don't worry, the guild's collection of books is well organized now, and I have found it," Levi answered confidently. "Then I'll trouble you too." Hal nodded, walked to the center of the top floor, and sat down cross-legged. As several magic spells lit up, dense spells and magic patterns quickly spread out with Hal as the center, covering the entire guild from the top floor to the bottom. This is a special defensive spell that Hal found. After the establishment is completed, the magic power provided by the 10 holy mages can be exchanged for extremely strong defense and monitoring capabilities of the entire guild. However, the disadvantage of this magic is that once the person providing the magic power leaves too far, the defense effect will be invalid. But Hal is different. He is the dragon slayer of the earth. The magic power itself is extremely special, and he can restore magic power in the ground. And even if he leaves the guild, his special earth magic can still maintain the effect of the spell for a long time, which is also verified by Hal and Levi Fried. 3 days later, when the spell was completed, Hal had stored more than 10,000 light holy swords in the magic circle. Once an enemy appears, the spell will automatically identify people without the fairy tale emblem, and then these light holy swords will emerge and attack. After 3 days of high-intensity spell writing and defensive magic, Hal was still full of energy, but Fried and Levi were so tired that they fell asleep in the room. It was also on this day that Mistin Gang returned to the guild. Hal found that the top floor was very suitable for doing some thoughtful things, and the scenery was also very good. While he was meditating on the top floor, Mistong Ang's figure twisted the air and appeared. A deep voice sounded, "This is the information about Bosco you asked for." "Thank you, Mistin Gon." Mistangon asked in confusion, but I don't understand, what do you want this information for? Because our identities are the same. Hal said lightly. What? But you have magic power. I mean the identity of the prince. Hal explained helplessly. Mistangon was silent, obviously still digesting this shocking news. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Wendy is here and she wants to see you. Hal looked at Mistangon seriously. What? Wendy? She joined Fairy Tale. Yes. By the way, I have known her since childhood, but I lost my memory later, so I haven't found her. I still want to thank you for helping to take care of her back then. The old man you found is really reliable. Hal said gratefully. Mistangon fell silent again, as if recalling those past events. I will help you with Anima's affairs. You don't have to shoulder everything by yourself. After all, you are now a member of Fairy Tale. Hal said firmly, knowing the meaning of Mistongang's coming to this world. After a long time, Mistangang finally spoke, I will go to see her. After that, his figure twisted and disappeared into the air. Hal looked at the place where he disappeared and whispered, what a weird guy. Chapter 53. On this day, Hal was dozing off on the bar counter out of boredom. He had a habit of completely relaxing for a few days after working hard for a while. He had spent a lot of energy on setting up the guild's defensive spells a few days ago, and now he finally had time to lie down. Myra, who was standing by, looked at Hal with a smile, playfully poking his nose with her fingers, squeezing his face into a funny pig face. Hal just mumbled between half asleep and half awake, and moved his body lazily, obviously not caring about Myra's prank. The guild hall was as lively as ever. Natsu and Grey were fighting as usual, and their fists and magic collided to create sparks, attracting a lot of onlookers. Urza put her hands on her hips and was majestically reprimanding the two troublemakers, making them stop fighting involuntarily under her gaze. Juvia hid aside, her cheeks slightly red, quietly watching Grey, her eyes full of admiration. Gajeel on the second floor leaned on the railing, silently watching the noise downstairs, with a hint of envy in his eyes. Although he has always been cold, this warm atmosphere still touched a corner deep in his heart. The guild was full of joy and laughter. The weather in Magnolia was particularly sunny, as if reflecting the warm atmosphere of the guild. At the same time, Lucy and Wendy were strolling on the street with Xiaolulu. As they walked, they chatted, and the topic naturally couldn't be separated from the guild partners. Wendy listened to the story of Natsu and Happy with great interest, especially the experience of Natsu and Happy meeting, which made her feel particularly interesting. So this is how Natsu and Happy met. It's really similar to my experience with Xiaolulu. Wendy said to Xiaolulu with a smile, with an innocent smile on her face. However, Xiaolulu's expression seemed a little cold, and there was a bit of resentment in her eyes. At this moment, a cold wind suddenly blew, catching people off guard. Wendy, Lucy, and Xiaolulu immediately felt a chill and shivered. The weather has changed too quickly, Lucy complained, and couldn't help wrapping her clothes tightly. Let's go, Wendy, Xiaolulu, let's go back to the guild. Wendy nodded, and she and Lucy quickened their pace. Xiaolulu flew beside them, and although she didn't speak, there was a hint of worry in her eyes. The three people and the cat hurriedly walked towards the direction of the guild, and they felt that there seemed to be an unusual atmosphere in the air. The sky was gloomy, and the breeze was a little chilly. On the streets of Magnolia, there was an indescribable sense of oppression in the air, as if some terrifying force was approaching. This feeling became stronger and stronger, and the atmosphere of the whole city gradually became tense. Lucy and Wendy Xiaolulu had already run to the main entrance of the guild, standing on a high place, observing the entire Magnolia with a cat. Lucy, why is it so strange here all of a sudden? Wendy looked at the gradually deserted streets, feeling uneasy. I'm not sure either. Lucy frowned and looked at the street ahead. Suddenly, she seemed to think of what Hal had said to her, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. Could it be him? At this moment, the ground on the street suddenly began to shake violently. The citizens of Magnolia acted quickly, closing the doors and windows of the houses and shops on both sides of the street, and even the goods in some shops were quickly taken in. The originally bustling streets suddenly became silent. What's going on? Wendy opened her eyes wide in surprise, looking at everything around her in disbelief. Suddenly, a slow sound of footsteps came from a distance, accompanied by the vibration of the atmosphere. An extremely powerful magic power rushed over, making people breathless. This power made Wendy's heart beat violently, and she even had difficulty breathing. What is this? Wendy's voice trembled. As the footsteps approached, the buildings on both sides of Magnolia Street began to move to both sides automatically, as if the entire city was actively changing its structure to allow this strong man to pass. It's him. Fairy Tale's strongest wizard, Gildarts. Lucy whispered, her voice full of awe and shock. Sure enough, a tall figure appeared at the end of the street. He was wearing a dark green cloak, his long orange hair swaying gently in the wind, his stubble was slightly messy, and the whole person exuded a wild and unruly aura. However, the most eye-catching thing was his left hand and left foot, which were prosthetic limbs made of special metal, shining with a cold light. Every step Gildarts took, the ground trembled slightly, and the surrounding walls the body even split automatically, as if it could not bear the pressure of his magic and had to move away. This kind of scene, in the history of Magnolia, only happens when Gildarts returns. This is too exaggerated. Lucy couldn't help but sigh. Even though she had heard countless rumors about Gildarts, she was still shocked to see the return of this legendary wizard. Wendy tightly grasped Lucy's arm, her face full of disbelief. She had never seen such a powerful person who even changed the whole city. This power, this sense of oppression, far exceeded her cognition. Gildarts finally walked in front of Lucy and Wendy and stopped. He lowered his head slightly and showed a gentle smile. Hello, I am Gildarts, is Fairy Tale here? As he spoke, the heavy pressure in the air dissipated instantly, as if nothing had happened. Even the weather returned to its original state, becoming sunny and bright. Lucy and Wendy felt the sudden relaxation of the atmosphere around them, and the tense string in their hearts finally relaxed. Gildarts touched his chin, showing a somewhat embarrassed expression. Sorry, two little girls, I was stunned just now, and I scared you. I want to go to Fairy Tale, may I ask if they have moved? Lucy and Wendy looked at each other, and looked at Gildarts a little blankly. Just as they were about to explain, they heard a sound of footsteps. Hal walked out of the guild gate and saw Gildarts standing in front of him asking for directions, with a helpless look on his face. Uncle, don't be so naive. After this road is renovated, isn't Fairy Tale at the end? Take a closer look. Gildarts was stunned for a moment, then laughed, his eyes narrowed into a slit. He reached out and patted Hal's shoulder, so hard that Hal shook slightly. Oh! Hal, I didn't expect you to grow up so big and become handsome. How are you? Do you have a girlfriend? Hal couldn't help rolling his eyes. You've been away for too long. If you weren't always running around outside, you would have seen me and Myra long ago. As he spoke, he pointed at Myra who was standing at the door not far away. Myra saw the two of them and smiled and waved. Seeing this, Gildarts smiled meaningfully. Oh! It turned out to be Myra, you have a good eye. Just as Hal was about to refute a few words, Gildarts had already raised his head and looked around. His eyes swept back and forth between the gate of the guild and the newly built buildings around it, and a confused look gradually appeared on his face. Is this Fairy Tale? Why does it feel a little wrong? He muttered to himself, frowning, obviously puzzled by the scene in front of him. Don't think about it, Uncle, Hal shook his head helplessly, this is newly renovated, the guild is rich now. Come back for a while this time. Gildarts laughed and patted Hal on the back. Okay, Hal, you've really grown up. By the way, these two girls are also new members of Fairy Tale, right? He then noticed the guild emblems on Wendy and Lucy. Wendy bowed slightly, her voice clear and a little shy. Hello, I'm Wendy, I just joined Fairy Tale a few days ago. Lucy smiled confidently and introduced herself. Hello, I'm Lucy, I often hear Natsu mention you. Gildarts laughed, his eyes full of warmth and joy. Ha 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 ha, welcome to join Fairy Tale. But Natsu, that brat, can mention me, I guess he's just saying bad things about me. Lucy couldn't help laughing. Actually, he admires you. Gildarts smiled heartily and waved his hand. Let's go see the president. This time I come back, I have to reminisce with everyone. The two walked into the door of the new guild together. The space inside was much larger than before, but Gildarts still saw Makarov standing in the middle of the hall at a glance. The old man saw Gildarts and smiled for the first time in a long time. Gildarts, welcome back. Gildarts walked forward, bowed his head slightly, and smiled. President, it's been a long time. Makarov looked Gildarts up and down, noticed his prosthetic limb, his face changed slightly, but then he regained his composure. I'm glad you're back. Gildarts smiled and waved his prosthetic limb. This little thing is nothing. By the way, the guild has become so big, is it to prevent me from destroying it again? Makarov couldn't help laughing. You see it very clearly. I did consider this, but more importantly, it is to meet more challenges in the future. Speaking of this, Makarov seemed to remember something, with worry in his eyes. Gildarts nodded, feeling a warmth in his heart. However, he still involuntarily covered his prosthetic limbs with his cloak. He didn't want the young people in the guild to worry about him. Hal came over and patted Gildarts on the shoulder, and whispered, "Don't hide, uncle, I saw it all." Natsu, Gray, and Urza also stood aside, with curiosity and worry on their faces. What kind of enemy can hurt you like this? Natsu's voice was full of shock and awe. Gildarts took a deep breath, with a hint of heaviness in his tone. Black Dragon acknowledge. Just a moment, I didn't even react. His voice was low and firm, and he looked particularly serious when he recalled that time. Natsu fell into deep thought, and a complex emotion rose in his heart, both awe and determination. Gildarts, you are really amazing. At this time, Natsu was no longer the impulsive young man. He knew the world was big. He knew his own weakness. Not to mention the distant Black Dragon, even the nearby Hal and Laxus, he could not defeat them at all. He knew that he still had a lot of work to do. Gildarts looked at Natsu, and a feeling of emotion rose in his heart. Natsu, you are the one who has made the most progress. There was surprise in his tone, and he also recalled many past events. By the way, Natsu, Gildarts suddenly asked, have you made any progress with Lysina? Hal and Myra are together, you and Lysina can't fall behind. Natsu's expression dimmed instantly. Sorry, Gildarts, Lysina is already dead. Dead, dead. Gildarts was stunned, his face full of shock and disbelief. His eyes were full of disbelief. That was the little girl he had raised since she was a child. She was the kid who always followed him around with Natsu and Happy. Gildarts' voice became low and gentle. I'm sorry, Natsu. I didn't expect that. He looked at Natsu with a look of pity and sympathy. It's okay, Gildarts, Natsu forced a smile, I'm used to it. He took a deep breath and tried to keep himself calm. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn, and the laughter in the guild seemed to be swallowed up by the sudden news. Gildarts patted Natsu's shoulder hard to express his comfort and support. No matter what happens, you have to keep moving forward. You are a wizard of fairy tale. Chapter 54. Hal had some assumptions about Lysina's death, but he was not sure at this time. However, he was ready to go to that world with Mist and gang in a while. The world on the other side was also bold and tried to get its claws on fairy tale. Hal decided to teach them a lesson and prove his assumptions. After thinking about it, Hal shook his head and decided to dispel the sad atmosphere in front of him first. Uncle, throw away the prosthesis, I will help you connect the lost body, Hal suddenly proposed, trying to divert everyone's attention. Ah? What did you say, Hal? Gildarts seemed a little confused. Don't ask more questions, come with me to the client lounge on the first floor, it's empty now. Hal said without allowing rejection. Gildarts was stunned for a moment. Although he was full of doubts, he followed Hal into the lounge. Okay, uncle, sit down, I'll help you take off the prosthesis. Hal took out the tools and started to prepare. Ah. Okay. Gildarts sat down as he was told, although he had some doubts. No need, Hal, I'll do it. Suddenly, a familiar voice came, and Kana quietly walked into the house and slowly closed the door. Kana, what are you doing? Gildarts was obviously surprised by Kana's appearance, and even Hal was a little confused. Nothing, Gildarts was so badly injured, it's my duty to help. Kana's eyes fell on Gildarts's broken arm and calf, trying to control her inner fluctuations. Okay, Kana, you come to help. Hal felt the sadness in Kana's eyes, although he didn't know the reason, but he decided to respect her feelings. Gildarts frowned slightly, but still turned to Hal and asked half-jokingly, Hal, you kid, are you sure you can cure me? Uncle, you've been gone for so many years, and I'm no longer the kid I was back then. Now I'm the Holy 10. In terms of strength, you may not be able to beat me. Hal smiled and pointed to the Holy 10 badge on his chest. Good boy, Hal, you've become the Holy 10. Gildarts looked at Hal in shock, feeling deeply. How did those old stubborn people in the council change their minds? Many years ago, the president also recommended me, but those old stubborn people actually said that I had a problem with my lifestyle. Gildarts couldn't help but express his resentment. You, forget it. Hal wanted to complain, but thought of Gildarts's injury, so he held back. He clearly felt that as a dragon slayer, he could hear the faint life fluctuations in Gildarts's body, and even the shattering of his internal organs was clearly audible. Hal raised his right hand, and as the magic power continued to gather, a huge vitality condensed in his palm. Hal, you kid, this magic. Gildarts stared at the vitality gathered in Hal's hand in amazement. He simply couldn't understand that in this magic world where healing magic was almost lost, there were still people who could master such a powerful life magic. Give vitality. With Hal's light shout, the powerful vitality quickly rushed to Gildarts's broken limbs. As Hal's magic was activated, Gildarts's broken limbs began to grow slowly. In the shining light, his broken arms and legs seemed to be reversed in time, flesh and bones reconnected and extended, muscles and skin gradually covered the bones, and finally even the traces of the wound disappeared. In just half a minute, Gildarts's broken limbs were completely restored to their original state, as if they had never been injured. This is incredible. Gildarts looked at his arms and legs that were as good as new, and couldn't help muttering to himself. He clenched his fists, feeling the power returning, and was shocked. Haha, uncle, how is it? I didn't lie to you. Hal stood aside with a confident smile on his face. You kid, you are so amazing. Gildart's eyes were full of gratitude and admiration. He knew that Hal's power was extraordinary. This was not only the power of magic, but also the deep understanding and control of the power of life. Kana stood aside, and a trace of tears flashed in her eyes. She silently watched Gildarts recover as before, and the stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. Thank you, Hal. Kana whispered. It's okay, we are all family. Hal patted Gildart's shoulder gently, and the smile on his face became warmer. Great, my body has recovered, I'm going to find the president to drink 300 cups now. Gildarts had an extremely silly smile on his face, and he tore off the bandages on his body and was about to walk out. Wait. Kana stopped Gildarts. What's wrong, Kana? Gildarts was a little confused. Hal, Gildarts, and I have something to say. You stay here. Otherwise I don't have the courage to say it out loud. Okay. Hal was a little surprised. Kana took a deep breath and turned to face Gildarts. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were full of determination. Gildarts looked at Kana, and a sense of uneasiness rose in his heart. He vaguely felt that what was about to happen was unusual. Gildarts, there is something I have been hiding in my heart. I have always wanted to tell you, but I never had the courage. Kana's voice was a little choked, but she tried to stay calm. Today, I can't hide it anymore. Gildarts looked at Kana, frowning. He had never seen Kana's expression so serious. Kana, what's wrong? He asked gently, trying to ease her tension. Kana took a deep breath, raised her head and looked directly into Gildart's eyes, her voice trembling slightly. Gildarts, no, father, I am your daughter. The air froze instantly, and Gildarts was stunned in place. His brain was temporarily unable to process this sudden news. What did you say? He couldn't believe his ears. I have always been by your side. After my mother died when I was a child, I saw her diary and knew that I had another father, so I came to Fairy Tale, but I never had the courage to confess everything to you. Kana's tears rolled in her eyes, but she insisted not to let them fall. You have always been so strong and so dazzling. I never dared to tell you the truth because I was afraid that you would reject me, afraid that you would think I was a burden. Kana. Gildart's voice choked. He never thought that he would have a daughter, let alone that this daughter would always be by his side. Countless emotions surged in his heart, including shock, self-blame, and indescribable joy. I'm sorry, but I just couldn't bear it anymore when I saw you so badly injured. Kana finally couldn't control it, and tears burst out. What Hal said when he was a child made me understand that I should face my emotions bravely and not let regrets control me. Today, I finally mustered up the courage to tell you, because you are my father, I don't want to lose you. Gildart's eyes were also shining with tears. He slowly reached out and gently stroked Kana's hair, his voice full of tenderness and regret. Kana, I really don't know. I always thought I was a lonely wanderer, but I didn't expect that I missed you for so many years. Kana threw herself into Gildart's arms, and her tears soaked his clothes. Gildarts hugged Kana tightly, his eyes full of fatherly tenderness and guilt. I'm sorry, Kana. I'm really sorry for you. As a father, I owe you too much. It's okay, Dad. Kana choked and said, I just hope that from now on, you can take good care of me. Of course, we are a family, I will always be with you. Gildarts hugged Kana tightly, as if to make up for the lost time. His heart was filled with great joy and satisfaction. Although he had lost so many years, he was now determined to cherish every moment with Kana. Outside the door, Hal stood silently, feeling the warm atmosphere of the reunion of father and daughter in the house. He smiled gently, his heart full of relief, but he couldn't help whispering to himself, Stupid Kana, you have been hiding it from me since childhood. He shook his head, although he was a little helpless, but more happy that Kana finally mustered up the courage. This girl who has always been by his side finally found the courage deep in her heart, and Hal was sincerely happy for this. Chapter 55. That night, Gildarts announced the news to everyone in the guild. What? Kana is actually Gildart's daughter. Natsu was surprised and opened his mouth wide. The guild was silent at first, and then cheers broke out. Natsu, Gray, and others shouted congratulations, and even Urza showed a rare smile. Kana stood aside, with a slight blush on her face, but her eyes were full of confidence and pride. Myra smiled and poured a glass of wine for Kana, and said gently, Congratulations, Kana. Now the whole guild knows. Kana took the glass, nodded gratefully, and toasted with everyone to celebrate. Hal watched this warm scene from the side, and his heart was warm. The whole guild was immersed in a joyful atmosphere. This night, everyone was immersed in the warmth of family and friendship, and even the stars in the sky seemed brighter. After a few days, the guild's noise finally subsided. Although everyone was shocked at first that Kana was Gildart's daughter, after a few days of discussion and digestion, everyone had gradually accepted this fact. On this day, Hal was meditating by his own pond. The breeze blew across the water, bringing a burst of coolness. He closed his eyes and immersed himself in the inner peace and the rhythm of magic. Just then, a wave of magic interrupted his thoughts. Opening his eyes, he saw a letter made of magic floating in front of him, flashing a light blue light. Hal waved his hand lightly, and the letter unfolded in the air, revealing the handwriting of Miston Gang. The content was concise but full of implicit urgency. Obviously, Anima seemed to have made new moves. Hal frowned slightly, and he had already made a decision in his heart. That afternoon, Hal went to the guild to say goodbye to everyone and told everyone that he and Miston Gang were going to do a very important task together. Hal stood at the door of the guild, packing his bag. Myra stood beside him, with a trace of reluctance and worry on her face. Have you really decided to go? Hal? Myra asked softly, her eyes full of concern. Hal nodded, with a firm light flashing in his eyes. Well, I must go. This is not only for the guild, but also to verify my guess. Miston Gang is ready. It may be dangerous for us to go this time, but I must find out. Not long ago, Myra was told about the world of Edras, but he did not tell her about his guess about Lysina. He did not want a guess to become the girl's hope. Myra was silent for a while, then gently took Hal's hand and whispered, No matter what difficulties you encounter, remember that you still have us and the guild. Hal smiled and held Myra's hand tightly. Don't worry, Myra. I will be careful and will definitely come back safely. Myra nodded, but still couldn't help but remind her, remember to eat on time, and don't go too far when fighting. If you encounter danger in another world, retreat as soon as possible. The unknown world may be threatening. Hal smiled and touched her hair, and said softly, You are always so careful. I know, I will take good care of myself and wait for me to come back. Hearing this, Myra finally showed a reassuring smile on her face. Be sure to come back safely, Hal. Hal paused, then gently lifted Myra's chin and stared into her eyes. He ran his fingers through her silver hair and said softly, Since you are leaving, you must leave something behind. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly lowered his head and gently kissed Myra's lips. This kiss was gentle and affectionate, and time seemed to stand still at this moment. Myra closed her eyes, feeling the emotions he conveyed, her heartbeat accelerated, and her cheeks flushed. After a while, Hal slowly left and reluctantly let go of her. I will come back, For sure. Hal promised again, his voice low and firm. After parting his lips, Hal looked at Myra deeply, then turned and walked away. His back looked particularly firm in the afterglow of the setting sun, with an unshakable determination. Myra stood there, watching him leave, her heart full of complicated emotions, silently praying for his safety. Hal's trip was not only to solve the problem of Miston Hill, but also to really help Myra get out of her heart knot. He knew that if he could stay with Myra all the time, perhaps time could slowly heal her pain and let her regain her confidence and strength. However, Hal couldn't bear to see the girl he liked become so helpless and painful because of the loss of magic. If Myra still had magic, she might be able to fight side by side with Hal and face to those unknown challenges. However, the reality is cruel. Myra has lost the power she was once proud of. Now she can only stay in the guild and wait for Hal's return silently. For others, this may not be a big deal, but for a girl like Myra who was once strong and confident, this feeling of powerlessness is undoubtedly extremely painful. Her self-blame and powerlessness are like heavy shackles, which bind her deeply, and Hal knows in his heart that only by helping her regain the lost power can he truly unlock the shackles in her heart. Come on, I have a hunch that this will be a brand new beginning. Hal stood in the afterglow of the sunset, and the golden light sprinkled on his body, outlining his confident and firm outline. The sunset shines on the earth, dyeing the sky into a gorgeous orange-red, as if paving a glorious road for the upcoming journey. Hal's eyes are deep and determined, as if he can penetrate time and see every possibility in the future. Chapter 56. Hal leaned on the seat of the dragon carriage, his eyes fell on the magic map in his hand. The address provided by Miston Gang was clearly displayed on it. Fortunately, this place is not far away and is still within the territory of the Kingdom of Fiori. I hope everything goes well. Hal whispered to himself, his eyes looked out the window at the dense jungle approaching, and a trace of uneasiness and expectation flashed through his heart. What do you mean by smooth? Suddenly, a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. Hal raised his head suddenly and found that a tall figure had been sitting opposite him. The golden hair was still dazzling in the dim light of the carriage. Of course it's about Lysina. Wait, Laxus. Why are you here? Hal looked at Laxus who suddenly appeared in front of him with some surprise. Laxus leaned lazily on the chair with a sly smile on his face. I was just about to ask you, this dragon car has been assigned to me for the past 3 days. Did you get it through some backdoor? Hal was a little embarrassed. After all, although these dragon cars belonged to the guild in name, as the main organizer of the business road, he actually had the right to call them at any time. It's just a coincidence. Laxus showed a disdainful smile and crossed his arms in front of his chest. I guessed it, didn't I? Tell me, where are you going? Or are you going to do some secret mission behind my back? Hal sighed, knowing that Laxus would not let him go easily. Since the other party already knew, there was nothing to hide. I'm going to find Miston Gang, and something about another world. Another world? Laxus raised his eyebrows, his eyes showing strong interest. About Edla's. Hal's eyes flashed with surprise. Good guy, how did you know? Don't underestimate me, after all, we are both the strongest candidates. Since you can know about him, why can't I? Laxus' tone was full of confidence. Hal smiled and nodded. Okay, no problem. The dragon car drove on the rugged mountain road for a while, and finally stopped at the edge of a remote forest. The air outside the car was filled with the smell of moist soil, and a few birds chirped in the distance, which seemed quiet and mysterious. After the two got off the car, the trees around them were lush and green, and the treetops almost blocked the sky. Only through the gaps could they see a few rays of sunlight sprinkled on the ground. Hal looked around and pointed to the forest ahead. He should be nearby. Laxus followed closely behind. Although he seemed relaxed on the surface, a trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes, and he was obviously observing the surrounding environment carefully. After all, as a powerful wizard, he knew that danger could lurk in the dark at any time. Not far away, they saw the figure of Miston Gang. Mistong Ang's back stood like a statue. He stood in the middle of an open space. The air around him seemed to become heavy because of his presence, as if even the wind did not dare to flow freely. Miston Gang, we are here. Hal was the first to break the silence, and his voice was particularly clear in this quiet forest. Miston Gang nodded slightly, his eyes retracted from the sky, and a trace of deep thought appeared in his eyes. You came at the right time, things have become more complicated than I expected. Complicated? Laxus frowned and looked at Mist and Gang, trying to find more information from the other party's words. What happened? Mist and Gang did not answer immediately, but turned his eyes to the sky. His eyes were fixed on the sky, as if waiting for the answer to be revealed. Following his gaze, Hal and Laxus also looked up at the sky. There, a huge vortex was slowly rotating, emitting a faint blue light. This vortex was like an unstable source of magic power, suspended in the air. The surrounding space seemed to be trembling slightly, and the magic power fluctuations in the air became extremely strong. Is this anima? Laxus stared at the rotating vortex, with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Yes, Miss Dongang's voice was low and heavy. This is a small anima. The function of anima is to convert the magic power of Eslanden into magic crystals, and then transfer it to Edras. Now it is still testing the position, trying to find the place with the strongest magic power. So, this vortex is a bridge between the two worlds? Hal asked, his eyes fixed on the vortex, with a faint ominous premonition in his heart. That's right. Mist and Gang nodded. This is a kind of super subspace magic. In theory, the flow of magic between worlds can be opened up. Anima can establish a connection with Edras, so that the magic power can be transferred. Originally, I thought this anima would be a little bigger. Mist and Gang said leisurely, his eyes lingering on the small vortex for a moment, with a bit of self-mockery in his tone. It seems that my father has mastered more advanced technology. This small anima can probably only teleport one person at a time. So you are a prince? Laxus looked at Mist and Gang with some surprise, and a hint of curiosity flashed in his eyes. It seems that you don't know everything, Laxus. Hal said with a smile, with a hint of teasing in his tone. I was just teasing you in the car, Laxus shrugged and said nonchalantly, I only know that he is from Edras, and I don't know anything else. Laxus ignored Hal's doubtful expression and continued. So, this vortex can pass through the barriers of the world? Laxus asked, his tone full of confusion and a hint of uncertainty. In theory, it is possible, Miss Dong-ang replied, with a hint of subtle tension in his voice, but it also means great risks. Once the barrier between the two worlds is broken, it may lead to a series of unpredictable consequences. In theory? Ha ha ha, that's good. Hal's mouth curled up with a confident smile, and he cast his eyes into the depths of the vortex, feeling its magic fluctuations, as if he was ready to face all challenges. Hal's whole body began to gather magic rapidly, his body was wrapped in a layer of dazzling golden light, and magic surged around him like a tide. That power was like a volcano about to erupt, foreshadowing that a shocking change was about to come. Laxus and Miss Dong-ang followed closely behind, feeling the powerful flow of Hal's magic. Their bodies were gradually wrapped by that power, and the expressions on their faces became more focused and serious. Let's go. Laxus, Miss Dong-ang. Hal's voice was full of determination. He pressed his hands slightly, signaling them to be ready. Hal seemed to feel that this moment was the turning point of fate. This kind of small vortex, the three of us may not be able to rush through it. Mist and Gang frowned slightly, with a hint of caution in his tone. What? Believe me. Hal's mouth curled up a confident smile, and golden magic began to gather around him, and the light flashed brighter. As Hal's words fell, the three people wrapped in Hal's magic flew to the center of anima together. Hal's magic merged with the energy of anima to form a strong light, taking Laxus and Mist and Gang through this huge magic vortex. At that moment, time and space seemed to be torn apart, and the distortion and pulling of space threw their bodies into an unknown world. The radiant vortex spun around them, and the surrounding scene kept changing. They felt as if they were flying in a tunnel through time and space. The strong magic fluctuations hit them's senses, causing their bodies to tremble slightly, but they remained steadfast. Hal felt a strong attraction, and his magic began to glow in the vortex. Laxus and Mist and Gang leaned on him tightly, feeling the fluctuations and changes of the magic. Their bodies were wrapped in a layer of soft light, as if they were in a vortex of light, and were gradually pushed forward by the powerful force. The magic of the three people and the energy of anima intertwined to form a powerful force that pushed them forward. At that moment, Hal felt a power he had never felt before, which came from the intersection of two worlds, as if their existence was being reshaped. Get ready! Hal's voice echoed in the vortex with excitement and anticipation. His body was filled with powerful magic fluctuations, and he took Laxus and Mist and Gang through the last barrier of anima. Finally, they broke through the boundaries of anima and entered a whole new world. The scene before them shocked them. It was a gorgeous and mysterious scene. There were huge islands floating in the air. Strange colors and brilliance intertwined, creating a scene completely different from the world they were familiar with. The air was filled with strange energy fluctuations, as if the whole world was breathing magic. In the distant sky, huge clouds moved slowly, as if weaving some mysterious pattern. Here is Edras. Hal looked around calmly, feeling the strange energy of this new world. He felt an unprecedented excitement in his heart, which was the desire for adventure in the new world. Chapter 57. At this moment, Hal, Laxus, and Miston Gang stood on a huge cliff, looking down at this strange world. The sky of Edras was a charming purple-blue, which was completely different from the blue sky of Eslanden. There were many huge floating islands floating in the sky, each of which was covered with strange plants and creatures. These floating islands seemed to be part of the earth, but they were suspended in the air, as if supported by some mysterious force. The floating islands were connected by slender rivers and vines, forming a complex aerial network. What a strange world! Hal couldn't help but admire, his eyes wandering with the floating islands in the air. People living in such a magnificent world are on the verge of losing their magic power. Laxus muttered to himself, with a bit of incredible tone in his voice. Our magic power seems to be suppressed, which is strange. Are we not used to this world? Hal looked down at his palm, feeling the long-lost feeling of losing magic power. However, at this time he did not feel any pain as before. No, the magic is still in me. Hal clenched his fists, and the magic of the Earth Dragon began to slowly wrap around his arms. Although suppressed, he could still feel the powerful force in his body. Some strange power in this world seems to be suppressing, but it is not enough to completely suppress us. Hal said confidently. Laxus saw this and closed his eyes to feel it carefully. After a while, his magic power gradually recovered, and the light of lightning appeared faintly beside him. That's right, Hal, this suppression does exist, but it's not enough. Laxus said affirmatively, with a fighting spirit flashing in his eyes. Seeing this, Miston Gang silently put away the magic antidote he had prepared. It's worthy of Hal and Laxus. This level of magic control is really amazing. Miston Gang said sincerely. You are amazing, you can fight me even without magic. Laxus sighed, with a little admiration in his words. It's just a side door. Miston Gang responded lightly. You are too modest, Laxus smiled, and then asked, when can I see your 7-layer magic circle? 7-layer magic circle. Hal heard this, and his eyes showed a little surprise. This is the first time I heard you have this. Laxus, your ability to collect intelligence is really admirable. Miston Gang smiled and praised. Of course, he was the one who cried and shouted to be the president back then. Hal raised his eyebrows and did not hesitate to expose his shortcomings. Shut up, Hal. Laxus responded slightly speechless, with a little helplessness in his tone. Miston Gang took off his mask and looked at the two with a smile. Let's go, Hal, Laxus. This world is bigger than you think. The direction of the royal capital should be in the north, which is our next destination. So, at Miston Gang's suggestion, Hal and others set off. Hal did not choose to fly at full speed, but experienced the core magic technology of Edras. They rode a magic four-wheeler and crossed a desert at an astonishing speed. It's incredible that this magic four-wheeler can run so fast. Laxus said with a little surprise. They drove through a vast desert, and the wheels left fast traces on the sand. In the car, Miston Gang explained, the magic of Edlas is different from that of Islanden. It is more scarce but concentrated, and is mainly stored in the earth and magic crystals. Because of the scarcity of resources, the residents of Edlas have developed a unique magic technology that can finely control and utilize magic. It's really fast. Hal agreed. The speed at this moment should be 120 yards, but the car body is still extremely stable. You know, this is driving at high speed in the desert, which is incredible. He seems to have a magic crystal for driving on special terrain. Perhaps, this magic technology can be brought back to Islanden, Hal thought. After all, we also have magic crystals there. Although they are in different forms, the core is magic, so they should be connected. What do you think, Hal? Laxus asked curiously. I do have some ideas, but the key is how to let these technical talents cross the world barrier. I'm afraid it's not enough for me to learn alone. Hal thinks far ahead. Miston Gang smiled slightly with some appreciation. This time, Hal went forward to help Mistang crush the king's ambition. According to Mistang's description, as the magic gradually disappeared, the king has regarded the magic of the whole world as private. He recklessly plundered the magic crystals of the people and gathered the magic of the world to himself. In his hand. Not only that, with Edraz's unimaginable magic technology, the king is even able to seize the magic of other worlds. Although his behavior is infuriating, we have to admit that he is an ambitious king. Hal pondered for a moment and said. Maybe, Mistang said with a little helplessness, but he has never really paid attention to the people outside the capital. Their anxiety and fear are no different from his, but he carelessly deprived them of the magic they depend on for survival. Mistang, you are a prince who cares about the people, and you seem to be a qualified heir to the kingdom. Hal said sincerely. Maybe. Mistang repeated his answer, and then sighed softly. The magic of this world will disappear completely in 10 years. I can't imagine how panicked the people will be. But even so, I can't tolerate plundering the magic of other worlds. I came here to help you resolve this contradiction, Hal said firmly. The people need a good leader to help them face reality. 10 years may be too little for the old king, but for you, Mistang, I think it's more than enough. Ha ha ha, thank you, Hal. Joining Fairy Tale is really the best decision I have ever made. Mistang smiled from the bottom of his heart. I agree with this, too. Hal responded with a smile. Hey, pay attention, Laxus suddenly reminded, this island is almost at the end, there is no way ahead. In this case, how do you usually deal with it? Hal turned to ask Mistang. Usually we take a boat and travel along the river between the islands, or go around several islands. Mistang explained, but this way is very slow. The military has a faster way of travel, that is the magic flying boat. This kind of aircraft equipped with a large number of magic cannons has always been the old king's weapon. Mistang continued. Magic flying boat? Is it similar to Pegasus's spaceship? Laxus asked. In comparison, Pegasus's spaceship has long been outdated here. The magic flying boat is far superior in terms of flying speed alone. Mistang replied. Yes, this technology must be brought back. Hal's eyes were firm, and he was already thinking about how to use these technologies in his mind. Hey, Laxus laughed and complained, don't think too far. Soon, Hal and the other two gave up the bulky magic four-wheeled vehicle for experience. Although the speed of this car is not slow, it is still a bit inferior to Hal personally taking Mistang and Laxus to fly. The capital is heading north, Mistang pointed the direction from high in the sky. At this speed, we will arrive soon. The three of them flew at high speed in the air, like a meteor streaking across the sky, quickly approaching their destination. The land of Edras below flew past them at a high speed, with vast deserts, verdant forests, and picturesque mountains showing one by one. A few days later, a towering city appeared on the distant horizon. That was the capital of Edras, a center that gathered the magic power of the entire world. The city was surrounded by weapons shining with magic power, as if to separate the entire sky from the earth. The city walls towered into the clouds, emitting a cold light, appearing both mysterious and majestic. That is the capital, the heart of Edras. Mistang stared ahead, with a hint of complex emotions in his eyes. It gathers the magic power of the entire world. What an amazing place! Hal narrowed his eyes slightly, feeling the powerful magic fluctuations in the capital. Okay, now we have to decide how we will enter the capital. Laxus looked at the capital in the distance with ease. Chapter 58. Of course, we have to use an absolutely overwhelming attitude to quickly solve all enemies, so as to force the old king to abdicate. Hal said domineeringly, his voice full of firmness and confidence. Wait, Hal, I don't want to solve it this way, Mistang frowned, obviously a little worried about Hal's plan. Okay, Mistang, let Hal and I solve this matter. You just need to play the role of defeating us in the end. Laxus suddenly interrupted, his tone with an irresistible firmness. As for your father, I will personally take him to end his knot and take him to the so-called God Island. Hal's tone was calm but with a hint of coldness. No, you don't know him, Hal. For the sake of magic, he will actually take action against the so-called gods as long as the time is right. Mistang's eyes flashed with a trace of worry, and he obviously had a deep understanding of his father's behavior. What an ambitious king, but in the face of absolute strength, everything is a bubble. Hal responded coldly, I will play the role of a revenge wizard from Asland. Before I completely destroy the resistance forces in the capital, you just need to wait here for our return. After that, without waiting for Miss Dong Ang's reaction, Hal and Laxus streaked through the sky like meteors and quickly flew to the capital of Edras. No, as long as we plan slowly, there is no need to do this. As the Prince of Edras, Miss Dong Ang obviously could not accept this approach, even if it was the most effective. But Hal was already prepared. The golden magic restraints slowly crawled all over Miss Dong Ang's body, making him unable to move for a short time. Hal? How could it be? When did it happen? Miss Dong Ang looked at the magic restraints on his body in disbelief. He didn't even notice when Hal made the move. Hal and Laxus flew over the sky of the capital at a high speed, leaving a dazzling light and a glaring mark in the sky. The two of them were full of powerful magic, and they rushed towards the palace as fast and strongly as a storm. The terrifying magic made the entire capital shocked by this sudden power. On the streets of the capital, residents felt an invisible sense of oppression, and the powerful magic fluctuations almost suffocated their emotions and psychology. People looked up and stared at the two people standing in the air with wide eyes. The powerful magic pressure frightened everyone. What's going on? A citizen asked in horror, with undisguised fear in his voice. How could humans stand out of thin air? Who are they? Another citizen stammered, his face pale and at a loss. The soldiers in the capital also panicked at this time. They quickly gathered and tried to organize defense, but in the face of such a huge pressure, their actions seemed insignificant. The soldiers held up magic devices and tried to detect the source of the threat, but the oppression of magic made it almost impossible for them to concentrate. Quick, notify the king. A terrible enemy is attacking the capital. A soldier ordered hurriedly, his voice full of anxiety and panic. In front of the palace, Hal and Laxus's arrival was spectacular. The two flew to the palace square at a very fast speed, and then burst out with powerful magic. The air was compressed and almost solidified, and the powerful energy fluctuations made the entire area in front of the palace tremble. Hal stood in the open space in front of the palace, releasing strong magic, and the air was filled with a suffocating sense of oppression. His voice echoed in the air, shocking like thunder, I am a wizard from Asland, and I come with dissatisfaction with your king. Today, everyone in the capital will witness our anger. Laxus followed closely behind, with golden magic wrapped around his whole body, reflecting a dazzling brilliance. His voice was low and powerful, King of Edras, get out. In front of the palace gate, there was a dead silence, as if even the air was suppressed and lost its sound. Countless people and soldiers felt a deep fear and helplessness in the face of this powerful pressure. At this moment, the old King Faust trembled and walked out with the help of the soldiers. His hunched body and pale face reflected his inner fear and anger. Damasland wizard. Faust's voice was full of anger and trembling, my soldiers, I order you to kill him. Yes. The soldiers seemed to be confident in the words of the old king, and their voices were full of determination. They quickly gathered from all corners of the palace to the square and launched a fierce attack on Hal. Each soldier's magic weapon emitted a dazzling light, as if a gorgeous feast of light was in front of the palace. The battle unfolded on the open ground. 100,000 soldiers activated their magic weapons and released countless gorgeous magic beams. These beams streaked through the night sky like meteors, interweaving into a dazzling light net, like a huge rain of light falling around Hal. The light intersected and spread in the air, forming a suffocating wall of light that covered the entire palace square. However, Hal only frowned. His expression was calm, as if he had already expected this scene. He took a deep breath, raised his hands slightly, and then used light magic, and the light suddenly bloomed around him. Light magic holy barrier. The power of light magic is like the dazzling sunlight in the morning light, powerful and pure. Hal's light magic formed a strong light curtain at a very fast speed, blocking all the incoming magic beams one by one. When each beam hit the light curtain, it emitted a dazzling brilliance and a violent explosion, but it could not break through the defense of the light curtain. The light curtain in front of Hal was like an immortal shield, dissolving all attacks into nothingness. The light curtain surrounded the entire attack, blocking all the magic beams in front of the capital. Hal stood in the center of the light curtain, like an unshakable lighthouse, and the surrounding light set off his firm figure. His expression was still calm, and his eyes revealed a hint of indifference. How is it possible? It's completely useless. Faust roared angrily, his eyes full of fear and disbelief. What a joke, we are the 100,000 strong kingdom of Edras Legion, how could we defeat a mere magician from Asland? A soldier said angrily, his voice full of helplessness and despair. How can we fight this? Another soldier murmured helplessly, obviously feeling helpless about the situation in front of him. Where are our magic cannons, why not use them? Someone asked hurriedly, trying to find the final solution. At this moment, dozens of golden thunders struck from the sky, accurately hitting the positions of all the magic cannons. The roar was deafening, and dozens of huge explosions instantly enveloped the entire capital, with thick smoke and dust in the air. How could it be? Many citizens who were always paying attention to Hal and Laxus knelt down in despair, holding their heads, their eyes full of unbelievable fear. The kingdom's strongest 100,000 kingdom legions couldn't hurt them at all, and the enemy even destroyed all the magic cannons in the capital in one move. Another citizen's voice was full of deep despair. We are finished, facing such a terrifying enemy, we have lost. Some citizens had tears in their eyes and their voices were low. This cry gave countless citizens a faint hope in their hearts. Yes, we still have the adults of Exit. People began to change their beliefs and pray for the protection of those gods. Great Lord Exeter, great God, please punish me. They knelt on the ground, their voices filled with piety and despair, praying to the gods in the sky, hoping to get the power of God to save them from the current predicament. Poor Edla's people, Exeter in the sky is just a group of cats with magic, and they actually believe in them as gods. Hal's cold voice echoed over the capital like a cold storm. You blasphemer, Lord Exeter will punish me. A soldier walked out angrily, his voice full of challenges and threats. Ha 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 ha, God's punishment? What a pathetic guy, what's there to fear about a hypocritical god? Hal's laughter was full of contempt and ridicule. Then, Hal condensed a huge magic power all over his body, and with a loud bang, the terrifying magic power swept across the entire capital again. At this time, the kingdom soldiers suddenly realized that they could attack just now because Hal had never taken them seriously. Dragon killing secret. Earthquake dragon spear. Hal roared loudly, and his voice resounded throughout the capital. His staff appeared from the void, and golden magic spread on the staff, forming a huge dragon spear standing tall. Hal held the dragon spear tightly with both hands, and the magic in his body surged like a flood. Poor Edras, take a good look at how I penetrated the residence of your gods. Hal's voice was extremely cold and threatening, and his eyes flashed with a resolute light. Wait, Hal. Laxus was a little puzzled at this moment. He knew that Exeter was a fellow tribe of the Harpy, and was also a group of weak cats trying to protect themselves from being hurt. However, Hal completely ignored his questions. Hal took a deep breath, and the huge magic power continued to condense and strengthen on the dragon spear, and the spear body became even bigger. With Hal's shout, the dragon spear shone with golden light in the air, like a giant beast endowed with mysterious power. Go! Hal roared, and threw the huge dragon spear forward. The dragon spear cut through the air with powerful airflow and shining brilliance, rushing towards the gathering place of the gods. Its trajectory was like a golden meteor, with an extremely fast speed, setting off an amazing storm. The people of the capital witnessed this scene, and their terrified eyes were full of incomparable shock and despair. The huge pressure of the dragon spear swept over, and the air was full of violent vibrations, as if the heaven and earth were trembling. The huge dragon spear left a dazzling light trail in the air, as if it was going to tear the entire sky apart. As Hal's dragon spear accurately penetrated the island of God, the vibration of the entire Edras capital reached its peak. The huge shock wave and violent explosions plunged the entire city into deep fear. The golden light of the dragon spear penetrated the core of the God's island, and the shocking power remained unabated, and continued to rush into the sky. The island where the gods live has been penetrated. Countless people murmured in their hearts, with shock and fear intertwined in their expressions. After a long time, Hal's dragon spear had turned into a golden staff and flew back to his hand. However, the island that was once protected by the gods was now silent, as if it had fallen into a dead silence, and the occasional crying hurt everyone's heart. God? Scared? People discussed in a low voice, and fear and doubt were obvious in their eyes. Hal's voice came again from the sky, cold and threatening. The weak cat was held high, but the powerful enemy ignored it. Such a ridiculous kingdom will be destroyed by me today. This sentence was like a flash of lightning, hitting everyone's heart. Hal's thunder like magic swept the entire capital again, bringing an unparalleled sense of oppression. The magic in the air became hotter and more threatening, making the atmosphere of the whole city more solemn and panic-stricken. No! No! A mother held her child, her face full of fear and helplessness. No, Mom! The child's cry echoed in the street, in sharp contrast to the silence of the city. The soldiers in the capital gradually put down their weapons, looking desperate. They once confidently guarded their country and believed in the gods on the island of gods, but facing the powerful power of Hal and Laxus, they had no way to resist. In the sky of the capital, Hal and Laxus's figures were particularly dazzling, overlooking the city shrouded in fear. The whole capital fell into endless panic and chaos at this moment. People's faith collapsed, and the will of the soldiers was completely crushed. The future of Edlas hung on a thread, and the entire kingdom faced an unprecedented crisis. Today, on behalf of the world of Asland, I declare that King Faust of Edras and Chief of Staff of the Kingdom Army, Bayero, are sentenced to death. This sentence was like a cold thunder of judgment, hitting every corner of the capital. The residents of the capital all felt deep fear and despair in this fierce declaration. The old King Faust looked ashen, and his despair and panic were obvious. The Chief of Staff of the Kingdom Army, Bayero, was pale and at a loss. As Hal's voice fell, his magic power swept the entire palace again like a storm, bringing a golden shock wave, and countless soldiers flew backwards. The golden magic power continued to spread until the edge of the palace. At this moment, every inch of air in the capital was filled with violent shocks and powerful oppression. The suffocating magic power spread, completely submerging every corner of the capital in fear and despair. The cries and wails of the people echoed over the capital, and the storms and magical lightning in the sky intertwined, reflecting the doomsday scene at this moment. The future of Edlas seemed to be completely overshadowed at this moment, and Hal's declaration seemed to have completely announced the destruction of the kingdom. Chapter 59. In the fear and chaos of the capital, Mistong-ang finally appeared. He was wearing a black cloak and looked unwavering. Mistong-ang stood in the center of the square, his figure looked particularly solemn under the shocking light. The 5 magic wands inlaid with magic crystals behind him shook gently, suggesting that he was ready to face the next challenge. Prince Jalal! The citizens shouted in unison, expecting to get a promise of rescue from him. Mistong-ang looked at Hal and Laxus in front of him. He could feel their powerful momentum, but his eyes were firm and calm. He knew that at this moment he had to continue to complete his plan and protect his country and people. Facing the group of suddenly eager eyes, he took a deep breath. Everyone, Mistong-ang's voice sounded, calm but not without dignity, I'm back. As the Prince of Edlas, I will do my best to protect our kingdom and save our people. These wizards from Asland are so powerful, and I already know the current situation of the kingdom. Mistong-ang's voice was clear and firm, however, I will not give up easily. The future of the kingdom lies in how we face the current difficulties. Your Highness! The people shouted one after another, feeling a long-lost comfort. Your power is beyond imagination, Mistong-ang continued, but I believe that you will never defeat me. Hal and Laxus looked down from the sky and saw Mistong-ang appear, and a smile flashed in their eyes. Mistong-ang's appearance was just right. If he didn't appear again, Hal would have to act it out for real. Hal flew in front of the prince with a playful smile. It seems that the Prince of Edlas has a different opinion. Now, can you tell me how you plan to deal with this situation? Facing Hal's challenge, Mistong-ang resolutely said, I will not let my people continue to suffer. Although you are powerful, I will fight for my kingdom and my people. It's good to have courage. Hal said softly, and then his voice suddenly became cold and stern. Then let's see what you can do. He stretched out his palm, and 5 canes stood in front of him, and began to activate his magic. The atmosphere around him gradually became tense, and the air was filled with strong magical fluctuations. Mist and illusion. Mistong-ang whispered, his voice full of mysterious power, and the air in the sky gradually filled with a thick fog, slowly covering the entire sky of the capital. Look over there, that fog. It's Prince Jalal's magic. Someone exclaimed. Interesting, he wants us to fight him on the ground first. Laxus grinned. Hal landed smoothly, and Laxus turned into golden lightning and rushed towards Mistong-ang in an instant. Try this move, Thunder Dragon's Fang Tianji. Laxus gathered terrifying magic power to release thunder to the extreme, and then suddenly blasted out. Good guy, this move didn't even hit 30% of my power. Laxus is really good at acting, Hal complained behind him. I saw the terrifying Thunder Dragon Fang Tianji passing through countless houses and quickly approaching Mistong-ang. Triple Magic Array Mirror Water. Miston Gang used the Triple Magic Array Mirror Water to rebound Laxus's attack, causing Hal to be strongly rebounded. Hal thought it was intentional. Then he pinched the seal again, fivefold Magic Array God of War. The beam of light condensed in the air, covering the figures of Hal and Laxus. This is the prince's magic. Seeing this powerful magic circle, people were shocked and encouraged by the power of Miston Gang. Come on, Prince! Miston Gang stood in the center of the royal capital, looking at Laxus and Hal who were still being attacked by Mikagura and could not see their figures, with a calm expression on his face. He took out the staff in his hand and danced slowly in the air. As he cast the spell, the 7-layer magic circle nothingness gradually unfolded. The light of each magic circle intertwined to form a huge light curtain surrounding Hal and Laxus. The light of the magic circle became stronger and stronger, and the sky of the entire royal capital was illuminated, as if daylight had suddenly arrived. The 7 magic circles, with precise arrangement and perfect overlap, created a seamless barrier, which gradually shrank to form an invisible binding area, completely enclosing Hal and Laxus. This is... Hal and Laxus felt the powerful pressure of magic, and their movements were forced to slow down, and even became a little stiff. As expected of the strongest candidate of fairy tale, the name of Miston Gang is well deserved. Hal was a little amazed. As the light of the magic circle gradually became stronger, the magic power also became more and more dense. Hal and Laxus felt that they were trapped in a powerful magic suppression. Any magic attack they tried to launch was blocked by the powerful rebound force and could not work. The fluctuation of light and the surge of magic power formed a strong sense of oppression, making them feel difficult to breathe. Miss Dong Ang's voice came from outside the magic circle, saying coldly, "The 7th magic circle nothingness is my strongest magic. It can seal any opponent in the void space and digitize and delete them. Your struggle is meaningless." Hal and Laxus looked at the surrounding light gradually enveloping them, and felt an unprecedented sense of oppression. Their bodies were entangled by the restraint of light and could not move. The huge magic fluctuations continued to erode their defenses, making them gradually feel powerless. This is... How is it possible? Hal's eyes flashed with a hint of acting, and he did not retreat. He tried to mobilize the magic power in his body to fight back, but the power of the magic circle was too strong, and any resistance was quickly suppressed. Laxus's face also became solemn. He felt that he was trapped in a powerful confinement space. The light in front of him became stronger and stronger, almost swallowing up his consciousness. We can't resist this magic power. Laxus' voice was filled with helplessness and despair, as if he was powerless to save the situation. As the power of the magic circle continued to increase, Hal and Laxus's figures gradually blurred in the light, and their resistance became weaker and weaker. In the end, the powerful power of the gorgeous 7-layer magic circle, the void, completely strangled them. Any force that tried to break through was completely suppressed. The sky of the entire royal capital was shrouded by this powerful magic power, and everyone saw this absolute magic feast. We won! A citizen shouted excitedly, his voice full of unconcealed excitement. Prince Jalal himself has no magic power, but he still defeated such a terrifying enemy. Another citizen shouted, with reverence and excitement in his voice. Gerard, Jalal, Jalal! The shouts in the crowd gradually became louder, surging like a tide, shaking the entire capital. Countless soldiers were also impressed by Miss Dong Ang's powerful magic and firm courage, and their eyes were full of admiration and respect. The previous suspicion and uneasiness about the prince disappeared without a trace at this moment, replaced by trust in Jalal and expectations for the future. Miston Gang sighed secretly on the spot, and then raised his right hand. The Wizard of Asland has been killed by me, and Edlas has won. Miss Dong Ang's passionate voice spread throughout the capital. Oh! Countless people and soldiers responded loudly, welcoming the return of the king. It's over, it's all over. King Phadius stood on the high palace and knelt on the ground involuntarily when he saw this. In the following days, with the help of many supporters, Jalal forced the old king to abdicate. During this process, the old king's resistance was very tenacious. He not only gathered troops to try to assassinate Jalal, but also used his remaining power to resist. However, every time he issued a decree, the people who executed these orders always died suddenly, and died of unknown reasons. This situation made the ministers who supported the old king extremely frightened and uneasy. And Jalal's reputation quickly spread throughout the world of Edras. After several days of fierce conflicts and tensions, finally, driven by the will of the people and the rolling trend, Jalal officially held the king's abdication ceremony. The whole king was immersed in a brand new atmosphere at this moment, celebrating the end of the old era and the beginning of the new era. At this ceremony, Jalal, wearing a luxurious royal robe, stood majestically and calmly in front of the throne. His eyes revealed incomparable firmness and confidence, and his short blue hair looked extremely heroic under the sun. Countless people in the audience seemed to have seen the future glory of Edras. The accompanying ministers also cheered, and the whole kingdom was filled with a new hope and strength. King Gerald's reputation quickly swept the entire world of Edras. His heroic name was widely praised throughout the world of Edras. Under his rule, Edras seemed to have ushered in a new era. Magic power was gradually returned to the hands of the people, and people's lives began to gradually return to peace and prosperity. As for how to let the people survive in this world without magic, Gerald or Mustang still has 10 years to answer. Chapter 60. In a magnificent hall, the armored general, with a face full of respect and nervousness, carefully directed the maids to put the food on the magic table. He shouted, "Be careful! This is the king's guest." The maids nodded tremblingly, put the food in order respectfully, and left the hall. The armored general knocked on the door gently and said in a flattering tone, "My lords, today's dinner is here. Put the magic table in, and everyone get out." A cold voice came from the room. "Yes, sir." The armored general obeyed the order, carefully opened the door, and moved the magic table into the room. Then, he lightly touched his hand, and the magic table floated in the air, and then quickly closed the door and left. In the room, Hal and Laxus were leaning on a sofa, leisurely and contented. Hal stretched out his hand and the magic table was pulled in front of the two by the golden magic. "Yes, the food here is good," Laxus commented casually. "This table is also good, it even has an automatic cleaning function. If I can study it thoroughly and take it back." Hal was completely attracted by the structure of the magic dining table, touching and studying it carefully. "Hey, don't be too outrageous," Laxus complained helplessly. "I'm serious, the technology of this thing is really amazing." Hal still stubbornly studied this magic device, touching and knocking, never tired of it. "Or, let's eat first." Laxus couldn't stand Hal's obsession. "Ha ha ha, I'm serious, the magic device manufacturing skills here are really extraordinary. Look, the magic device for changing clothes in the house is also quite exquisite, and it is very convenient for ordinary people to use." Hal couldn't help but sigh. "I remember that we only have magic that can change the color of clothes over there," Laxus responded. "Yes, there are more advanced ones, but no matter how sophisticated or fast, they can't compare to the magic devices here," Hal praised. "Every profession has its own specialty." Laxus nodded in agreement. Since the scene with Miss Dong-Ang, Hal and Laxus have been staying in this room, drinking during the day, eating meat at night, and occasionally going out to help Miss Dong-Ang eliminate the remnants of the old king. Although the two seem to stay at home, their magic perception has never been relaxed, and they can detect any enemies approaching Miss Dong-Ang at any time and anywhere. It is worth mentioning that during this period, the Queen of Exeter and the ministers of the kingdom also came to see him with a bunch of cats and offered their loyalty. Hal also promised to protect them and take them to a world where they will not be hunted by humans. "Your magic control is really outrageous." After Charlotte and others retreated, Laxus couldn't help but sighed. Unexpectedly, at such a distance, using such terrifying magic to only penetrate the island without hurting any cats. That's the credit of the staff in my hand. Since I have it, my magic control level has been increasing day by day. Hal smiled and explained. "So that's the case. That's not surprising. The old man can't even reach your level of control over magic." "Ha ha 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 ha, Laxus, are you also afraid of the terrifying talent of Master Benhil?" Hal teased. "Oh, that's a nice thought," Laxus replied without admitting defeat. Tisk, Hal curled his lips when he saw this. "Are you satisfied with your living here, Hal, Laxus?" At some point, Miss Dong-Ang appeared in the room quietly and said softly. "Miss Dong-Ang, no, it's His Majesty Jalal." Hal made an exaggerated salute with a funny expression. "Stop it, Hal, that's the etiquette of Asland. Besides, do you really think I'm the king?" Miss Dong-Ang chuckled. "You are the ruler of the entire Edras world, Miss Dong-Ang," Laxus said with a smile. "You two put me up here," Miss Dong-Ang retorted helplessly. The three looked at each other and laughed together. Come on, sit down and eat and talk. Hal called. Mr. Gang sat down casually, not caring about his new identity. After enjoying a few bites of food with Hal and Laxus, he took out a stack of information from his arms and handed it to Hal. This is the information you want? Mr. Gang said. Oh, you are so efficient, Mr. Gang. Hal took the information with satisfaction and flipped through it. It's no big deal. By the way, do you have any special purpose in looking for the fairy tale in this world? Mr. Gang asked curiously. Ha 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 ha, I'm just a little interested. Hal responded with a smile. After all, it's you, I don't think it's that simple. Mr. Gang also smiled. Hal continued to read the information, and suddenly stopped on a page, his eyes suddenly solemn. He looked at the girl in the information and murmured to himself, Lysina, is it really you? Lysina? You mean? Laxus was stunned and stopped eating. I want to confirm it with my own eyes. Hal said firmly. How to confirm it? Laxus frowned and asked. Find her and sense whether she has magic power in her body. Hal said in a deep voice. Laxus put down the tableware and looked at Hal in a daze. Are you really sure Lysina is still alive? Hal has mentioned this hypothesis many times in the past few days, but Laxus has been unwilling to believe it. Go and see and you will know. Hal said no more, grabbed Laxus, and flew into the sky, aiming directly at the Fairy Tale Guild in Edlas. The room was quiet in an instant, and only Miston was left. He shook his head helplessly and said to himself, Really, can't you have a good meal with me? Thoughts began to surge, and Miston muttered to himself, Lysina, Myra's sister? If Hal's guess is true, then she may have been transformed by anima. He frowned, thinking about this complicated situation, then how to explain the corpse? Could it be that when anima transformed, the rules of this world used her to replace the dead Lysina? Everything is still full of uncertainty. Miston sighed, stood up, and looked out the window in the distance. There was a hint of hope in his eyes. In any case, I hope Lysina is still alive. He stood up and looked out the window at the night sky, silently praying that things would have a good outcome. At the same time, Hal and Laxus flew through the air at an astonishing speed, and the golden light shone like a meteor in the night sky of Edlas. Hal's heart was filled with anxiety, more anxious than ever before. They flew across different regions of Edlas, looking for that familiar figure. Finally, in a dense forest, they saw the target, a huge ancient tree with a sign of the Fairy Tale Guild hanging on it. Outside the guild, a white-haired girl, she was concentrating on hanging clothes. Hearing the sound of flying through the air, she couldn't help but raise her head and look at the night sky. At that moment, Hal and Laxus stopped in the air, surrounded by golden magic light, and they stared at the girl on the ground in a daze. Her face was so familiar, as if time had gone back 2 years. Lysina. Hal and Laxus spoke at the same time, with disbelief and deep emotion, gently overflowing from his mouth. The eyes of the two met with the eyes of the white-haired girl in the air, as if at this moment, time and space stopped between them. Chapter 61. Under the night sky, the white-haired girl's eyes met those of the two people under the golden light, and shock and emotion intertwined in her eyes. She couldn't help but loosen the clothes in her hands, her eyes widened, and tears quietly slipped down. Brother Har, Brother Laxus. Lysina called softly, her voice trembling a little. She couldn't believe the scene in front of her, and gently covered her mouth, tears overflowing from her eyes. Lysina, it's really you. Har and Laxus landed almost at the same time and quickly stood in front of Lysina. Har excitedly stretched out his hand and gently held Lysina's hand, eagerly feeling her presence in his heart. There is really magic, no mistake. No mistake. Har's voice was full of excitement. He held Lysina's hand tightly, and his eyes were full of tears. Laxus, you bastard, I said a long time ago that Lysina might not be dead. Har was so excited that he was a little speechless. It's true, Lysina is still alive. Laxus' voice was also full of emotion, his big hand gently stroked Lysina's little face, and his inner excitement was hard to suppress. It's good that Myra and Elfman are here, you know, Lysina, they really blame themselves for your death, finally. Fortunately, Lysina. Hal's voice trembled with excitement, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Lysina has always been the youngest sister in Fairy Tale. For Hal, every time he comes back, she will run over to greet Hal cutely. So no matter how long Hal goes out to work, every time he comes back, he will bring Lysina her favorite food, drink, and play. Her death 2 years ago not only brought endless grief to everyone in the guild, but also made Hal unacceptable. He went to the scene to observe for a long time, but did not find any clues. Laxus, who has always been known for his calmness, could not suppress his excitement at this moment. The oldest big brother in the guild could not help his emotions at this moment. He gently stroked Lysina's hair and held her hand tightly with his other hand, as if to firmly grasp the lost and regained feelings. "Long time no see, brother Hal, brother Laxus." Lysina's voice was full of joy, and tears flowed on her cheeks, but this time the tears were more because of the happiness of reunion. She held Hal and Laxus's arms with one hand, feeling the long-lost warmth and sense of security, as if all the pain disappeared at this moment. After an unknown period of time, the voices of Hal and others finally attracted the attention of the members of the fairy tale of Edras. Then, a white-haired girl in a red and white skirt and a white-haired boy came over quietly. "Are you the family of this child?" the white-haired girl Myra asked with a smile. "Sister Myra, brother Elfman." Lysina turned around and saw them, with mixed emotions in her heart. She said in surprise, "You, no, I'm not." Myra nodded gently and said softly, "Well, you are exactly the same as my sister Lysina, just as kind and considerate." Elfman continued, "Brother doesn't want to make you sad. Although I don't know why you came to us, brother also wants to take good care of you." Myra continued, "You know, Lysina, the moment I saw you, I was really happy. Even though I know you are not the real Lysina, the joy of regaining what I lost makes me lose any reason." Elfman sighed, with a hint of apology in his voice, "I'm sorry, we are very selfish, and we can't let you accompany your real brother and sister." Lysina said with tears in her eyes, choking, "Sister Mila, brother Elfman, I'm sorry." Myra shook her head gently, her voice gentle and firm, "It's okay, Lysina. Go back to your real brother and sister." Elfman also whispered, "We have selfishly owned you for 2 years. Finally, let your brother and sister hug you, my sister, Lysina." His voice was full of reluctance and emotion, and that sincere emotion made the air around warm. On this quiet moonlit night, in the quiet forest, the 3 white-haired brothers and sisters hugged each other tightly, as if they wanted to engrave this short reunion into their hearts. Time seemed to stop at this moment, and only the sound of each other's heartbeats echoed in the night sky. I don't know how long it took. In the cool summer night, the sound of cicadas gradually sounded, breaking the silence of the night. The violets that Lysina had planted in front of the guild also bloomed quietly at this moment, emitting a faint fragrance, as if adding a touch of tenderness to this unbearable separation. Myra and Elfman silently loosened their arms and closed their eyes. The hazy Lysina gently pushed Hal and Laxus. Although they were reluctant, they knew that this moment would come eventually. "Go, Lysina," Myra smiled, tears flashing in her eyes. "Goodbye, brother and sister will always remember you." Hal's golden light quietly enveloped Lysina, gently and firmly, slowly lifted her up and rose towards the night sky. "Goodbye, Sister Myra." Elfman, Lysina's voice was choked with sobs, tears slid down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." The girl's voice echoed in the night sky, soft and affectionate, as if touching every leaf and every flower in the forest. The breeze gently blew, bringing up the surrounding leaves and petals. They seemed to be moved by the girl's departure, and followed the guidance of the wind and gently floated behind her. Every leaf and every flower seemed to silently accept her tears and turn them into a gentle embrace of nature. The stars in the night sky flickered slightly, reflecting the tranquility and mystery of the forest. The scent of violets diffused in the air, interweaving with the cicadas into a moving melody. The figure of the girl gradually merged into the brilliance of the stars, and everything around her seemed to be sending the most gentle blessings for her departure. Chapter 62. Hal held Lysina and flew in the night sky. The golden light was as soft as water, reflecting the glimmer of the stars. Compared with the previous rapid flight, the flight at this moment seemed particularly quiet and long. Hal's posture was gentle, as if he was worried that any slight movement would disturb the peace of the girl in his arms. Lysina gradually calmed down in his arms, and her eyes, which were red and swollen due to tears, finally closed in exhaustion and fell asleep peacefully. Laxus followed closely behind, his calm face revealing rare tenderness. He did not tease or provoke, but just accompanied silently, as if he wanted to pour all the warmth he had lost in the past 2 years on Lysina. The starlight fell, and the sky was filled with the purple Milky Way of Edras, echoing the violets on the ground at the entrance of the guild, like a grand farewell ceremony. Hal gently placed Lysina on the bed, carefully looked at her quiet sleeping face, and then slowly walked out of the room. Mr. Gang was waiting outside, holding a heavy book in his hand. "I've decided. I'll leave as soon as Lysina wakes up," Hal said to Mr. Gang. "I knew you were leaving, but this is a good thing." Mr. Gang responded with some relief. "Yet." Hal nodded. "Take it with you before you leave." Mr. Gang handed the book to Hal. "What is this?" Hal took the heavy book with some doubts. "This is the magic device craftsmanship of Edra's world for hundreds of years. I know what you have always wanted," Mr. Gang explained proudly. "Although I don't know what you want to do specifically, I know that you need it very much, don't you?" Mr. Gang added. "Ah, thank you, Jalal," Hal said gratefully. "Ha ha ha, just call me Mr. Gang. I am always Mr. Gang of Fairy Tale, and this will never change," Mr. Gang said seriously. "Okay, we are always a family. Come on, be a good king. Maybe, in the future, the guild will need your help." "Okay." The two held hands tightly, as if this was not only a promise to each other, but also a fairy tale that formed an invisible bond, closely linking their fates. That afternoon, with the help of Mr. Gang, Anima was activated again, and the entire Exeter clan was also travelling with them. Tens of thousands of cats floated in the air. "Goodbye, Hal, say hello to the president and everyone in the guild for me." Mr. Gang said goodbye to Hal in his king's clothes. "Well, don't worry, I have a hunch that we will meet again soon," Hal replied with a smile. "Well?" Mr. Gang was a little puzzled. He didn't understand how Hal would find himself without the subspace magic. But the barrier between the worlds had been opened, and Hal held Lysina and Laxus beside him and left Edlas together. "I hope we can really meet again soon, Hal." Mr. Gang stared at Hal and others who were leaving. "Now, I am the only one left in our fairy tale. I should have known that I would not be so secretive in the guild. Now I still regret it a little." Mr. Gang murmured to himself and looked up at the sky for a long time. "Your Majesty." The staff who controlled the anima instrument in the room did not know what happened. He only knew that His Majesty asked him to activate the large anima. "It's okay, I just thought about a few friends." Mr. Gang turned away and gently wiped his eyes with the king's sleeve, with a hint of complex emotions in his eyes. Aslan, Hal, and others finally returned successfully. On a rainy night, Hal was shining with rich golden magic, resisting the invasion of rain, and returned to Magnolia with Lysina and Laxus. Tens of thousands of cats were also behind him. This time, the large-scale reverse anima of Mr. Gang was very effective. Of course, it might also be that Edras itself did not welcome these races who were born with magic in their bodies. In short, everything went well. "Lord Hal, we are willing to follow you," Queen Charlotte and a group of cat ministers said respectfully. "No need to do that, find a place to live in peace. When necessary, you only need to mention my name. Here is my Holy 10 badge. When you encounter trouble, you can use this badge to directly contact the Council or the Wizard Guild," Hal said, handing them an exquisite badge. "Then how can we track you down?" Queen Charlotte asked a little uneasily. "The time is not yet ripe. When the time comes, there will be a chance for you to be useful." Hal's voice was firm and calm. "Understood, Lord Hal." Everyone responded in unison. "By the way, there are 2 kittens in our guild, Habi and Xiaolulu. If you know who their families are, please let their relatives see them. I know your plan, but this still cannot change the separation of their relatives," Hal added with a hint of concern in his tone. "I understand." Queen Charlotte trembled slightly when she heard Xiaolulu's name, then lowered her head and became more respectful. "Magnolia, today is Lysina's death anniversary." Although the weather was not good and the rain was pouring, Natsu still sat quietly in the small house he and Lysina built together. Habi and Lucy beside him accompanied him quietly, and Natsu stared at the tombstone at the door silently. He specially asked someone to build it, and no one in the guild knew about it. This is his and Lysina's secret base. "Natsu, the rain is getting heavier, and this small house may collapse." Habi looked at the crumbling small house worriedly. "Impossible, the house she built is much better than mine, how could it collapse so easily?" Natsu was still immersed in his memories, with a hint of imperceptible confidence in his eyes. Lucy didn't say anything, just sat quietly beside Natsu, accompanying him silently. But Happy wanted to say something. Boom! The small house finally couldn't hold up under the heavy rain, and collapsed with a bang. The two people and the cat were pressed in the ruins, and the heavy rain was still quietly washing. Boom! With another loud noise, Natsu, who was burning with flames, stood up from the ruins. He held Lucy and Happy tightly in his arms, and the flames resisted the invasion of the heavy rain. Although the heavy rain could not soak the boy's body in front of the hot flames, the boy's eyes were full of loneliness and sadness. "Can't even our secret base be left, Listener?" Natsu muttered to himself. Suddenly, a golden light streaked across the night sky, which was particularly dazzling in the heavy rain. In the golden light, a white-haired girl appeared faintly, a figure that Natsu was very familiar with. "Listener!" Natsu screamed. However, in the hustle and bustle of the rainy night, his voice was perfectly obscured. The white-haired girl was getting farther and farther away. "Wait for me, Listener, don't go anymore, take me with you this time." A blazing flame burst out from the boy's body. He hugged the blonde girl and the harpy tightly, and chased the direction of the golden light in the flames. He didn't know if it was his illusion, he just wanted to see her again. At the same time, in front of the Cardia Cathedral, Myra and Elfman were presenting a bouquet of flowers to Listener. The rain hit their umbrellas, making a slight sound, as if mourning for the brother and sister who had lost their sister. With tears in her eyes, Myra whispered softly, "Listener, are you doing well over there?" She slowly stroked the tombstone, as if she could feel her sister's presence through the cold stone. "You know, I'm with Hal this year. He's really good, as strong and confident as ever. I admired him when I was a kid." Myra's mouth curled up slightly, as if she remembered something interesting. "However, after being with him, I found that he also has many small problems. Sometimes he becomes very lazy and lies in the guild and doesn't want to do anything. Sometimes he is willful like a child and has to challenge those ridiculously difficult tasks. But you know, these shortcomings make me feel a little cute." She chuckled, and then her eyes became soft again. "Listener, I really miss you, I really want to talk to you again. If you were still here, you would definitely stick to Hal, right? After all, he has taken special care of you since you were a child. At that time, I was a little jealous of you, and every gift was the most thoughtful." Elfman was silent, his hands trembling slightly, and he kept clenching the bouquet, as if this would hold on to his thoughts of his sister. Just then, a golden light passed through the sky and illuminated the entire church. Myra and Elfman looked up at the sky in surprise, and then their eyes showed disbelief. This is..." Myra's voice trembled. She looked at the golden light and felt an incredible feeling in her heart. The light slowly descended and gradually dissipated, revealing Listener's figure. She was still the gentle girl, with white hair fluttering in the breeze and a familiar smile on her face. "Sister Myra, Brother Elfman!" Listener called softly, her voice floating in the air like a dream. Myra burst into tears instantly. She couldn't hold it back anymore. She put down her umbrella, rushed to Listener, and held her tightly. Hugged tightly in his arms. At that moment, it seemed as if all the warmth she had lost had returned to her. "Listener, is it really you?" Myra burst into tears, holding Listener's shoulders tightly with both hands, as if she was afraid that she would disappear again. Elfman stood aside, and the strong defense in his eyes collapsed instantly. He rushed to the other side of Listener, lowered his head and hugged her, muttering to himself, "I'm sorry, Listener, I didn't protect you well. Brother is really useless." Listener smiled gently, she patted her brother and sister on the back gently. "I'm back, this time I will always be with you and never leave." In the heavy rain, the three brothers and sisters hugged each other tightly, and the warm power seemed to penetrate time and space and reconnect them together. Everything around seemed to be melted by this warmth, the rain was no longer cold, and the golden light that kept coming brought a long-lost tranquility and warmth. Hal stood aside, watching this scene silently. His eyes were gentle and firm, and complex emotions surged in his heart. Seeing Elfman and Myra hugging Listener tightly, his heart couldn't help but be deeply touched. Although there was a tired smile on his face, his eyes flashed with deep emotion and relief. After a long time, he walked forward quietly and gently placed his hand on Myra's shoulder. Myra's eyes showed a hint of surprise and gratitude. She looked up at Hal with tears and tenderness in her eyes. "Hal." Myra's voice was a little choked, but her eyes were full of gratitude and affection. She gently held Hal's hand and felt the warmth he conveyed. "Thank you, really, thank you, Hal." Hal's eyes softened, and he whispered in response, "This is what I should do. I will always be with you. No matter what happens, we will face it together." He turned his eyes to Elfman and Lysina, and the deep emotion and care flashed in his eyes. He gently hugged Myra, comforting her as much as possible, giving her strength and support. Myra felt Hal's warmth and firmness, and her eyes showed more love and dependence. As time passed, the rain gradually decreased, and the night sky was filled with the glimmer of stars. Myra leaned on Hal's shoulder and felt his solid support and love. There were tears of gratitude in her eyes, and deep emotions surged in her heart. "I am really lucky to have you by my side," Myra said softly, her voice full of affection and tenderness. "No matter what we will encounter in the future, we will go together." "Thank you, Hal, I love you." Hal held her hand tightly and kissed her forehead gently. Their figures intertwined in the light of the rain, as if telling of their unchanging commitment and deep feelings. Everything around them was set off by their warmth, and the cold and rain of the night no longer mattered, because their hearts were closely connected, warm and solid. November 11th, X784 Listen returned to the guild, dispelling everyone's haze. The guild members were moved to tears. The pain and loss in their hearts were healed by her warmth and smile. Her return was like a ray of light, bringing hope and redemption. Chapter 63. It has been a week since Listen returned, and Hal still feels like he is in a dream today. Every time he returns to the guild, he sees Lysina busying around with wine and food, smiling. Everything is familiar as if she has never left, which makes people feel emotional. Lysina now helps Myra with work in the guild every day, and the president smiles every day, and seems to be 10 years younger. In addition, Myra has also relaxed a lot, and her magic power is really recovering gradually. The former guild S-level wizard, Demon Myra Jane, has quietly returned. Not only that, Hal also noticed that her magic power is more than a little stronger than 2 years ago. Sure enough, setbacks can make people grow, and love, this magical magic, can make people stronger. These days, Hal would come to the guild from time to time to drink a glass of wine, sit for a day, and talk to everyone. He often looked at Guildarts and Kana, who were cute in the guild, and felt the childish interaction between them. He also glimpsed Laxus running around with the Thunder Gods, active in every corner of the guild. Occasionally, he would see Gray and Natsu quarreling, and listen to Lucy's complaints, all of which made him feel an unprecedented happiness and satisfaction. Recently, Hal's home has become unusually lively. Since Wendy moved in, Natsu and Happy often brought Lucy to visit. Then, Urza and Gray were also attracted. After all, Hal's home was spacious and equipped with a huge magic refrigerator, and someone regularly updated the food. Hal thought that Wendy would be a little lonely staying at home alone, so he was also happy with the nonsense of Natsu and others. Hal usually focused on studying a magic called Thought Body upstairs. Although he knew this magic in theory, he had always felt that it had no practical value, so he did not study it in depth. However, when conducting the guild defense spell experiment with Fried last time, Hal suddenly realized that his magic seemed to be different. This is not only the specialness of the Dragon Slayer, but also the unique effect given to him by the special red jade. For example, the thought body in front of him is no longer illusory, but has a physical body, and has 60% of Hal's magic power, and has extremely strong combat ability. All this is due to the life magic of the right hand, which gives the thought body a real sense of existence. Hal only needs to transfer part of his consciousness to create an incarnation constrained by his own consciousness. However, he can only create one such avatar, and Hal guessed that it might be the specialness of his own soul. In this way, the affairs of the Bosco Kingdom should also be on the right track. It's time to act. Hatch, Fusler, the secret of 400 years ago, and the gate under the royal city. Hal whispered to himself. He separated a part of his consciousness, and a magical thing happened. The thought body in front of him shone with real light, and a wisp of Hal's soul was given to it. This feeling is so strange, just like talking to myself. Hal sighed. It's true, I can even feel the echo. The thought body responded. Don't complain about me. Hal was a little helpless. It feels really strange to complain about yourself. The thought body continued. I said, don't. Hal tried to interrupt. Forget it, I can't stand it anymore, you go quickly. Hal finally compromised. So, the thought body Hal number 2 set off. At this time, Hal felt a little weak. The 60% of magic power he had divided out was indeed not to be underestimated. He needed time to recover slowly. After an unknown amount of time, Wendy came and knocked on the door of Hal's room on the second floor. "Brother Hal, Uncle Ika is here to see you," Wendy reminded softly outside the door. "I know, wait for me to go down." Hal finished his meditation and walked downstairs to the guest room on the first floor. "What's wrong, Uncle Ika?" Hal walked into the room and asked. "I have good news for you. Our trade routes now completely cover the entire kingdom of Fiori," Uncle Ika said with a smug smile on his face. "Ah? How did you do it?" "I don't think I helped much," Hal asked in surprise. "Ha ha ha, after we got rich, we have been committed to expanding the trade routes for 5 years, but we could only go around nearby cities. Not long after, the king of the kingdom of Fiori accepted our suggestions and handed over all the abandoned trade routes in the country to us for management," Uncle Ika explained. Hal couldn't believe it. How could it be so good? "Yes, it's really lucky. However, the king also has requirements." Uncle Ika paused. "How much?" Hal asked with curiosity in his eyes. "The king's requirements, it's 20% of the profit," Uncle Ika said with a smile. 20%? Hal asked in surprise. "That's really sincere." "Yes, considering the land area of the Kingdom of Fiori and the wide coverage of trade routes, this share ratio is actually quite exaggerated, especially since we not only cover the abandoned trade routes across the country, but also have stable cooperation opportunities," Uncle Ika explained. "It sounds good." Hal nodded. "This way, our business network can be further expanded." "Yes, the kingdom will also provide some additional support, such as tax incentives and funding for infrastructure construction, so that we can develop faster," Uncle Ika added. "This time you asked me to go to the capital to discuss this matter with the king." Hal got straight to the point. "As expected of Hal, you are the only one who is qualified to meet the king on our trade routes. Anyone else who goes there doesn't seem to be taking it seriously enough," Uncle Ika said approvingly. "I see, you send a message to King Fiori, and I'll be there tomorrow at noon," Hal confirmed. "Hal, is it true? This place is still far from the capital. Even if you use the dragon carriage now, you won't be able to make it in time." Uncle Ika seemed a little worried. "It's not that troublesome. I can just fly over there." Hal laughed. Fly over there?" Uncle Ika was confused. Although he knew that Hal was very powerful, he didn't expect his ability to be so amazing. "Too amazing, you know, Hal, this is more than 4 times the distance from Magnolia to Harujian," Uncle Ika said in surprise. "Ha ha ha ha, I'm a little special. I have a lot of magic reserves to squander. Flying over there is easy for me." Hal smiled confidently. Soon, Uncle Ika said goodbye and left, and Hal returned to meditation. He had recently felt the bottleneck of magic power. As long as there was another desperate battle, he might be able to break through to the next level, the 12 shields of the Holy Guard. Magic level, 4 heavenly kings of Ishgar, 12 shields of the Holy Guard, Magic King, Dragon King. That night, Hal prepared to rush to the capital, Crocus, in advance. This was a good opportunity to date Myra. He went to meet Thomas E. Fiori the next day. Chapter 64. At dusk that day, Hal took Myra across the night sky of Crocus. The breeze blew, the twinkling lights flickered below, and the prosperous scenery of the magic city was in full view. Myra hugged Hal tightly, as if she didn't want to leave this warm embrace. A happy smile appeared on her face, and her long hair fluttered in the air as she flew, like the most beautiful meteor in the night. "Hal, it's really beautiful," Myra whispered, her voice full of amazement and emotion. "Yes, it's worthy of being the capital of Fiori," Hal responded softly, his eyes looking at Myra gently. Feeling her snuggle made his heart warmer. They circled over the capital and finally stopped in front of an elegant restaurant. The restaurant is located on the high ground of the capital, overlooking the night view of the entire city. The appearance is exquisite and luxurious. The garden outside the window is dotted with gorgeous flowers and warm lights, adding endless softness to this romantic night. Walking into the restaurant, Hal and Myra were led to a window seat. Outside the window was a beautiful night view of Crocus. A bouquet of delicate roses was placed on the table, and under the soft light, the tableware shone with luster, and everything looked so perfect. The waiters served them gently, and the carefully prepared food exuded an alluring aroma. During the meal, Hal and Myra talked a lot, including about Listener and Natsu. I can still remember it now. Listener had just returned that day, and it was raining heavily. Natsu rushed over with Lucy and Happy in his arms, and the look in his eyes when he saw Listener was really unforgettable. Myra said with a smile. Natsu really misses Listener to the extreme. I don't know what kind of magic potion Listener gave him when he was a child. Hal teased. Magic potion? That's the feeling of childhood sweethearts, growing up together, and even Happy was hatched by the two of them. Myra corrected with a smile. Haha, speaking of this, I really want to complain. What? Myra asked curiously. When we were young, no one thought a cat could hatch from an egg. Hal chuckled. Haha, it's true, no one thought it was strange. Myra laughed even more happily. There was a gentle light in Myra's eyes. She tasted the food while chatting happily with Hal. The two looked at each other affectionately, as if time was reluctant to pass. After the meal, Hal and Myra strolled in the garden of the royal capital, which looked particularly charming under the night sky. The fragrance of flowers lingered in the air, as if it was specially prepared for their date. In the garden, several lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, adding a bit of romantic atmosphere. Suddenly, a soft light spread in the air, and the dreamy magic light of crocus reflected in the garden, like a charming light show. The petals danced lightly in the air, like the dance of elves, floating around them. Myra looked up at Hal, her eyes full of affection and expectation. Hal leaned over gently and brushed Myra's cheek. The two slowly approached, and their lips touched gently. At that moment, everything around them seemed to be silent, leaving only their kiss and the dreamy light. Petals fell on them, and the magical light in the night sky added a bright halo to their kiss. This moment, like a silent love poem, left an eternal memory in the garden that night. Late at night, Hal and Myra came to the most famous hot spring hotel in Kurikas together. The hot spring hotel is located on a hillside outside the city, away from the hustle and bustle, surrounded by the tranquility and beauty of nature. The design of the hotel is elegant and classical, exuding a warm and peaceful atmosphere, as if it is a private place carefully prepared for lovers. Entering the hot spring hotel, Hal and Myra were led to a beautifully decorated private hot spring suite. In the suite, the wooden floor and fireplace exude a soft warmth, and the mountain view outside the window is particularly charming in the night. The hot spring pool is filled with steam and exudes a soothing aroma, creating an extremely relaxing atmosphere for the two. Myra sat by the hot spring pool, her eyes showing a bit of tension and expectation. Hal looked at her with a gentle smile on his face. He walked towards her gently and whispered, Myra, if you feel uncomfortable, tell me, we can take it slow, the night is still long. Myra nodded shyly. She slowly took off her clothes, and the hot air from the hot spring pool wrapped her body. Hal also followed her steps and walked gently into the hot spring. The water temperature was just right, making people feel extremely comfortable and relaxed. The two sat down and said, if you feel uncomfortable, tell me, we can take it slow, the night is still long. In the hot spring pool, wisps of hot air rose from the water surface, and the misty atmosphere made them closer. Myra's face flushed, she turned to Hal and said softly, Hal, this is the first time I'm so close to you, it feels really wonderful. Hal reached out and gently held Myra's hand, me too, this is the most special night of my life. When Hal gently untied Myra's bath towel, revealing her smooth shoulders and budding soft shyness, the blush on Myra's face became more obvious. She turned slightly to the side and covered her face with her hands. Although she tried to hide it, her accelerated heartbeat and shy smile exposed her inner excitement. Hal carefully lifted her hair behind her ears and whispered, don't be shy, I will take good care of you. Myra's eyes were gentle, and her hands were caressing the surface of the hot spring, as if trying to relieve the tension in her heart in this way. Her movements were extremely careful, and the ripples on the water surface swayed slightly with every touch of her, emitting a faint luster. Hal gently reached out his hand and gently touched Myra's lower body, feeling her skin trembling slightly due to shyness. His fingertips slid slowly along her lines, bringing waves of shy water ripples. She whispered, you are really beautiful, Myra, I will make this night your most beautiful memory. Myra's cheeks became more rosy. She turned slightly and looked down at the reflections of herself and Hal in the water. Her fingers gently wrapped around Hal's neck, feeling the comfort brought by his warm touch. She bit her lip gently, trying to hide her inner shyness, but the tenderness and expectation in her eyes were unmistakable. Hal gently held Myra's hand in his palm, and he slowly pulled her closer, their bodies tightly pressed together. Myra's cheek was close to Hal's chest, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat. Hal lowered his head and kissed her forehead gently, then turned to her lips, and Myra's slender legs were tightly wrapped around Hal's body without knowing when. The steam in the hot spring enveloped wrapping them, creating a dreamlike atmosphere. In the hot spring, Hal and Myra's movements became more passionate and sweet. Hal's hand gently stroked Myra's face, and every touch brought a warm feeling. Myra snuggled tightly in Hal's arms, enjoying the intimacy and love of this night. As the night deepened, the water in the hot spring rippled gently, and the two hugged each other and kissed gently. The constantly changing reflections in the water and the constantly changing feelings made each other's heartbeats accelerate. At this moment, all the shyness and tension were replaced by warmth and sweetness. Their love sublimated in the hot spring and became an eternal and beautiful memory. Chapter 65. The next morning, Myra woke up to Hal's passion again. "Good morning, my dear wife." Hal moved his body slowly, which might become Hal's habit. "Really, you're still not honest after a night?" Myra pinched little Hal helplessly. "No way, who asked you to cooperate so well?" Hal continued his movements with a smile. "Stupid Hal." Myra covered her face and pretended to ignore him. Time passed unknowingly, and the maid knocked on the door and brought them the lunch they had ordered, which Hal specially asked to be delivered 2 hours in advance last night. "Hello, 2 guests, your lunch is here." "Well, just put it at the door." "Stupid Hal, it's time to eat." "Eat, wait for me to have a small meal, no rush." "How is it?" "I said that eating is especially delicious after exercise." Hal hugged Myra and picked up delicious monster meat for her. "Really, I have to meet the king later." "Then who do you blame?" Hal looked at Myra with gentle eyes. Myra was helpless under his gaze, and unconsciously leaned into Hal's arms. Hal fed her gently, one mouthful at a time, like a kitten acting coquettishly. 2 hours later, the two had enough food and wine, and after eating a few small meals, Hal had already put on formal clothes and stood in front of the mirror, gently arranging his hair. "How is it? Evaluate your boyfriend." Hal looked at Myra with some pride. "Humph, it's pretty good." Myra hit Hal's arm lightly. "Then you have to wait for me to come back." "Should we stay for another week or a month?" Hal was a little distressed. "A month, or a week?" Myra's pretty face was flushed again. "Let's talk about it when I come back." Hal gently pinched Myra's little face, smiled and turned into golden light and disappeared on the spot. Only Myra was left alone, covering her little face, and murmured sweetly, "I found another shortcoming of yours. You really like to bully people, Hal." Hal turned into a golden light and flew towards the palace of the Kingdom of Fiori. His figure gradually became clear in the air, and then summoned a golden staff, which slowly fell from the sky. The gatekeepers of the kingdom quickly recognized him. 100 soldiers immediately lined up, holding their spears slightly raised, and expressed respect to Hal. "Meet the 10 great mages of the saints, Lord Hal. We are waiting here under the order of the king, please follow us." "Okay." Hal nodded. The soldiers neatly divided into 2 rows, protecting Hal in between, and slowly walked into the palace. The interior of the palace was full of magical atmosphere, whether it was the high-hanging chandeliers or the candles on the ground, they were all formed by magic. As he went deeper, the number of magic soldiers holding staffs gradually increased, and Hal noticed that their magic power should not be underestimated. It seems that the king really likes magic. Hal couldn't help but admire. "Yes, Lord Hal, our king is particularly fond of magic, and even plans to hold the National Mages Guild martial arts performance in the capital of Kurikas next year." The soldier responded. "Oh, that's really exciting." Hal smiled. The soldiers did not continue the conversation. They could only answer Hal's questions and were not qualified to talk to Hal actively. Soon, Hal was led into a white palace. King Thomas E. Fiore sat on the throne, but his figure seemed a little short, only about 1.12 meters tall, which was a little funny compared to the throne. "Your Majesty, Lord Hal, one of the 10 great mages of the Holy Land, has arrived," the soldier reported. "Ah, you go down." The king waved his hand and signaled the soldiers to withdraw. "Hal, you should know the purpose of my summoning you, right?" King Thomas E. Fiore said slowly. "Yes, I understand after meeting the king." Hal bowed slightly and showed respect to the king. "That's good, let's talk straight to the point." The king said with a little dignity. I will hand over all the trade routes in the country to you, but I need you to get them all back in operation within a year. If you can do that, I will only take 20%. This request is indeed surprising. If Yuka were here, he would definitely pull Hal away. However, Hal just smiled. He knew the vastness of the kingdom of Fiori. Although it was only a part of the whole world, it was still very large. It can only be said that it was worthy of being a fantasy world. My Lord King, if you are willing to take only 10%, I can get all the trade routes back in operation within a month. Hal said confidently. What did you say? Hal, I know you are one of the 10 holy mages, but you can't make promises so easily. Do you know how big the territory of my kingdom of Fiori is? The king asked in surprise. I know this. Since I made such a promise, I am naturally confident. Hal replied. You are so arrogant, young man. But well, if you can restore the national trade route within a month, I won't take a penny, how about it? The king said angrily. Your Majesty, I don't joke. Hal responded firmly. Of course, if you can really do it. King Thomas E. Fiori's face flashed a trace of dissatisfaction. He felt that Hal's confidence seemed too rash. Sorry, Hal, I'm a little tired. The king waved his hand, signaling Hal to leave. Of course, please wait for my good news, Your Majesty. Hal did not have any emotional fluctuations because of Thomas's contempt. In fact, with Hal's current strength, even if he strictly goes around Fiori, it will take at most 4 days, which is already very fast. You know, it takes a full 7 days to take a train from the east to the west of Fiori. Note, Harbin to Kunming is only 3 days by train. It is conceivable that this seemingly weak permanent neutral country has a vast land area, but such a large land has only 17 million people. Hal left the palace and shook his head. He decided to go back to Myra first and then decide when to launch this operation. As for the old king's attitude, hey, no one would have trouble with money. Chapter 66. Hal and Myra spent another 7 days together. They spent the day touring the capital, Crocus, and at night they went to various famous hot spring resorts to exercise. King Thomas looked down on Hal even more when he saw this, and even the king's ministers took the opportunity to spread the story. After all, the 10 holy wizards cannot deceive the king, which is also a deep-rooted concept of respect and inferiority in this world. On this day, Hal got up with facial cleanser as usual, prepared breakfast, and looked at Myra's sleeping expression with a happy smile on his face. Then when it was almost time for Myra to get up, Hal started his habit of the past 7 days and started exercising, a special wake-up service. Soon, Myra woke up slowly, and looked at Hal exercising in front of her, obviously a little helpless. Childish, what will I do if I get woken up like this every day? Myra said coquettishly. Move to my place and live with me. My house is empty anyway. Bring Elfman and Lysina over and the family will be more lively. Humph. You just know how to make people happy. Myra sat up and hugged Hal happily. With the rhythmic chirping of birds outside the window, Hal and Myra finally got up. Myra ate the breakfast Hal prepared for her with great sweetness in her heart. Hal, how long will we stay? Lysina is already writing to me. She said she is too busy with the work at the guild front desk, Myra said while hugging Hal. Well, it's been a while. Laxus also wrote to me, asking me if I secretly went to carry out a difficult mission again, Hal said after playing with the white steamed bun in his hand. Ha ha ha, it's hard to imagine that Laxus would take the initiative to ask about others. Myra said with a smile. That guy is very arrogant. After I replied, guess what? He just stopped replying. Hal spread his hands helplessly, but there was a hint of playful smile on his face. Ha ha ha. Myra couldn't help laughing. Well, we should go back too. It's been 7 days. I've been studying the body structure for 7 days. I've been a little sleepless. Hal sighed softly and stood up. Bah, there's no such thing as sleepless, it's obviously you who enjoys it. Myra scolded, but her face was full of pampering. That's right, you forgot how proactive you are. Hal hadn't finished speaking when Myra suddenly came over and blocked his words with her red lips. Well. Hal was stunned for a moment, and then he also threw himself into this sudden hot kiss. After another hearty battle, Hal finally put down his face cleanser and walked out of the room with Myra, who was blushing and happy. Go to the back of the royal capital. This scene happened to be seen by several patrol soldiers not far away. They secretly followed Hal and Myra and began to discuss in a low voice. Sure enough, Lord Hal is still in the capital. Is the rumor in the palace true? Did Lord Hal really deceive the king? One of the soldiers was full of doubts, with a hint of uneasiness in his voice. Impossible. He is the most outstanding genius in the history of the magic world. He would never do such a rude thing. Another soldier hurriedly retorted. But he is really in the capital now. According to the contract, he should be preparing for the national trade route. The third soldier was also a little hesitant. However, Hal ignored the discussion behind him. He held Myra's hand and stared at the scenery in front of him. This is a long-abandoned trade route. It used to be an important transportation route connecting various places, but because of the rampant monsters in the mountains near the capital, the caravan could not pass safely and eventually had to give up using it. Many trade routes in Fiori are like this. The overall situation is good, but the local dangers force the caravan to take a longer route. Hal's eyes gradually became deep, and golden light flickered in his eyes. He had a plan in mind, and decided to leave an unforgettable gift for King Thomas before leaving the capital. He raised the golden staff in his hand, and the magic power in his body awakened like a sleeping dragon, and the powerful force quickly gathered under his control. As the staff was waved, the abandoned trade road in front of him began to shake violently, and the earth became hard and flat under the effect of magic, as if it was brand new. Near the mountains, his magic power surged like a tide, and the rocks condensed, and a wide tunnel was forcibly dug out between the mountains. The scale of this tunnel is so large that it is enough to make modern engineering scholars dumbfounded, and they must give him a mouth. This kind of construction method that does not care about the cost can only be achieved by the power of magic. 5 years ago, Hal did not have such a powerful power, but now he is a legendary magician who can rival the 4 heavenly kings of Ishgard. A warrior who can completely change the terrain through magic and create unprecedented wonders. This rock tunnel passes through the entire mountains, not only solving the problem of the passage of the trade route, but also completely blocking the monsters in the mountains. Just set up fortifications at the exit of the tunnel, and the monsters that once threatened the caravan will no longer pose any threat. Hal looked at his masterpiece with satisfaction, turned and smiled at Myra, then picked her up, soared into the sky, and returned to Fairy Tale. For Hal, these rock structures are just some slightly harder building blocks. He only needs to spend some time to accumulate power to complete them easily. Moreover, most of the rocks are extracted from the earth. All Hal has to do is to build them into shape and finally consolidate them with magic. As Hal and Myra left, the soldiers who followed them had already fallen to their knees in shock. They stared at the wonder in front of them in amazement. The towering mountains were penetrated by Hal's power, forming a huge tunnel that went straight to the horizon. The tunnel was tens of thousands of meters long, far beyond the vision limit of the capital, but for Hal, it was just an easy magic operation. As the dragon slayer of the earth, a rock tunnel of this size was almost effortless for him. If Fusler had witnessed this scene at this time, he might have admired Hal's control of magic, and would not have been shocked like these soldiers. Not long after, King Thomas personally led ministers and soldiers to the scene. This magnificent spectacle attracted many citizens to come and watch, and many people gathered here because they were curious about Hal's magic. God, am I dreaming? King Thomas looked up at the behemoth that spanned 10,000 meters and was 100 meters high in front of him, and muttered to himself in disbelief. His height of 1 meter and 1 meter made him look even smaller in front of this huge tunnel. Did Lord Hal do this? The legendary genius in the magic world, Saint Ten Hal, is indeed worthy of his reputation. The Minister of State beside him also couldn't help but let go of the cane in his hand, stunned with shock. This is simply the power of God. The people around were amazed, unable to believe that this shocking spectacle was created by one person. On the wall of the royal capital, a small figure was quietly hiding, and her emerald hair was gleaming in the sun. She was the Emerald Princess of the kingdom, only 12 years old, smart and curious. She had heard about Hal a long time ago and knew that he was the most outstanding genius in the magic world. So amazing, Lord Hal, an inexplicable emotion surged in the heart of the Emerald Princess, both admiration and worship. Hal's magic showed his almost godlike power and completely conquered everyone present. Chapter 67. Hal sent Myra back to Fairy Tale that day, and the news that the two dated for 7 days in the capital naturally could not be hidden from everyone in the guild. As soon as Hal and Myra stepped into the gate of Fairy Tale Guild, they were surrounded by the warm atmosphere. Gray started to make a noise. Hal and Myra are back. Natsu followed closely and asked half-jokingly, Did they bring us any gifts? Lucy immediately knocked Natsu on the head. Stupid, we are on a honeymoon, not shopping. How can you be so rude? Happy flew in the air, tilted his head and said, Myra seems to have become more beautiful. Elfman also nodded and shouted with full blood, Brother Howl, you look more manly. Lysina greeted them with a gentle smile, Brother Howl, Sister Myra, welcome back. Laxus stood aside and snorted coldly, Humph, boring guy, you actually wasted 7 days for such a thing. Howl and Myra entered the guild with everyone's welcome. Soon, Myra began to distribute gifts and the amazing bag of candy she brought back. God knows how conspicuous Howl was with such a big bag floating next to Myra. Everyone cheered and surrounded Myra when they saw the candy. Wakaba shouted happily, as expected of Myra, you are so thoughtful. Natsu took a bite of the candy and said incoherently, nice, let's eat wedding candy. Elsa suddenly realized, it turns out to be an oriental tradition, so thoughtful. Macau also praised, Haru and Myra really keep up with the trend. I have no objection, it's always good to bring more candy. Natsu said as he quickly grabbed a few candies and stuffed them into his mouth. Happy was not to be outdone and grabbed a handful with his cat's claws, hey, I want some too. At this time, Gray noticed that Natsu grabbed too much and immediately stopped him angrily, you took too much, brat. Natsu retorted without showing any weakness, what? Do you want to fight? Don't quarrel, I still have a lot, Myra said helplessly. However, the two had already entered the state completely, fighting with sparks flying and clothes flying backwards. Haru stared at the scene in front of him. Or rather, he kept his eyes on Gray. He's really fast. How did he do it? I used to sneer at this speed of taking off clothes, but now I learn frame by frame, Hal muttered to himself. While distributing candies, Myra saw Hal in a daze, so she whispered, stupid Hal, stop looking, come and help. Hal came back to his senses and quickly responded, oh. Here I come. He quickly joined the ranks of distributing gifts and candies, and the guild was full of laughter again. For nearly a month, Hal flew to various places in Fiori to repair the trade roads, and returned to the guild to find a shadow corner and stare at Gray closely. However, this seems to be a conceptual skill, extremely perverted, you can't even see any pre-swing of him. God has mercy on me, even when Elsa transformed, Hal could clearly see her figure, but Hal couldn't see Gray's undressing at all. During this period, Hal even thought about becoming a disciple, but thought about it and gave up. If everyone knew that he asked Gray for advice, he would not be able to live in his later years. In this way, Hal still focused on repairing the road. It was not shameful to make money, but his exaggerated magic wonders still shocked the people of Fiori. It is said that even a passing Ishgar 4 heavenly kings who looked like a tree praised Hal's magic and said that he had completely surpassed him. Now, Hal's reputation has exploded. Weekly Sosara even made an exception to let Hal appear on the cover for a full half-month and was willing to pay a large amount of royalties. In this way, Hal's name and deeds spread widely to every corner of Fiori, and he became a household legend. The people's worship of him reached an unprecedented height. Many people even made a special trip to the trade road he repaired to see the miracles he created with their own eyes. Star chasers who chased Hal also came into being, setting off a new wave of enthusiasm. Hal's reputation in the kingdom of Fiori was already at its peak, and countless people admired his terrifying magic. So on December 18, X784, Hal was given the title of Master of Nature and was honored as Earth Dragon Hal because people admired his terrifying magic again. At this point, the trade route around the country was completely built. Someone calculated that through the profits brought by the trade route, the fairy tale chamber of commerce represented by Hal could become the largest chable in the kingdom of Fiori in 1 year. Even the king of Fiori personally asked Hal to Hal expressed his rudeness, regarded Hal as an equal to himself, and awarded him the honorary title of Marquis of the Earth. The reputation of Marquis of the Earth Hal spread further, and even people in the western continent had heard of this legendary wizard. At this point, there were still 7 days before the world-shaking Tianlang Island incident. Chapter 68. On December 18, Hal had just accepted the knighthood from King Thomas and was sitting in a luxurious carriage in the palace, slowly leaving the capital of Crooks. The people on both sides of the road were extremely excited. Although there were 2 rows of soldiers clearing the way, the crowd was still crowded. People wanted to see the figure of this genius magician who created miracles with their own eyes. Hal leaned out of the carriage and waved to the people. Suddenly, Cheers like a tsunami resounded through the sky. Hal smiled and then returned to the carriage. The carriage slowly left the capital, and Hal got off the car with an uncomfortable look on his face. This broken carriage is really not as good as a dragon carriage. Hal complained, not only because of the poor comfort, but mainly because he was carsick. Just now, a small light magic circle had to be attached to his feet to relieve the discomfort, otherwise he would vomit when greeting the people. But Hal, who was used to sitting in a dragon carriage, still couldn't stand it. While thinking, he secretly regretted, I should have known not to agree to Thomas's request. Master Hal, why did you get off the car? A soldier asked in confusion after seeing Hal get off the car. Hal waved his hand and forcibly suppressed the feeling of motion sickness. Tell Thomas not to be so polite, there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future. As soon as the voice fell, he turned into golden light at an astonishing speed and rushed into the sky. The soldiers looked at the light going away, and responded in awe and nervousness, yes, yes, Master Hal. However, at this moment, Hal could no longer hear these words. He just wanted to go home and rest as soon as possible. The busyness of this month made him exhausted. He returned to the guild several times to watch Grey take off his clothes, and had no time to rest properly. It feels so good to fly. Hal opened his arms in the air, enjoying the unbridled freedom in the sky. It's impossible that he would encounter the black dragon Aknologia on his way home 400 years later. No way, no way, no one would be so unlucky, right? He muttered as he flew, looking at the dragon shadow in the distance. Fortunately, he didn't encounter any black dragons on the way. The only accident was that he flew too fast, knocked down 2 big birds and a sub-dragon, and was accused in an unspoken way. As the distance shortened, the outline of the fairy tale guild gradually became clear, and Hal's mood became more relaxed. Finally home. He landed gently at the door of the guild, and the familiar scene made him feel cordial. He pushed open the door and walked into the lively hall. The hall was full of laughter and members were chatting with each other. Hal saw Myra Jane sitting at the counter at a glance, and she was looking at him with a smile. Hal, you're back. Myra greeted with a smile. Hal also smiled slightly, well, I just came back from the capital. It's been a month. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Just then, Loki returned to the guild without knowing when, and suddenly hugged Hal. You're back, the richest man, Hal. Ah! I remember that you were taken away by Lucy, what happened? What do you mean by taken away? That's called marrying into a wife. Okay, that's marrying into a wife. Loki's joke made everyone around laugh, and then Grey also came over. This time you come back, of course, to help me prepare for the S-level exam. Hal suddenly realized, oh, yes, it's almost the new year, and it's time to evaluate the new S-level. The president has announced the location of the S-level assessment, and is waiting for you to come back for the meeting. Even Guildarts is here this time, it's really exciting. Natsu said. Don't, I just came back and don't want to move yet. Hal looked helpless. A man should take action, manly brother-in-law Hal. Elfman also interrupted. Hey, don't give me such a long name. Hal didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What do you mean by long? This is already short. You don't even know how many titles you have now. Grey teased. It's okay. Hal said modestly, but he was a little proud in his heart. Hal is proud. Hey, Natsu, I seem to have seen the ugliness of human narcissism. I heard. You too, you'd better not be caught by me during the exam. Don't worry, it's impossible. I don't believe my luck is so bad that I will meet you. If I meet someone, it will be Guildarts. Natsu's fighting spirit began to burn again. Why are you so confident all of a sudden? Hal complained helplessly, and then laughed. After all, Natsu is like this, sometimes he is unbelievably calm, and his fighting instinct is like a ghost, sometimes he is as honest as a stupid son of a landlord, you get used to it. Is Lucy going to participate in the competition too? Ah, Kana asked me to accompany her. Lucy replied. Kana and Lucy have always had a good relationship. What about Levi? Hal wondered, he remembered that Levi and Lucy also had a good relationship. Ah, Levi, she teamed up with Gajeel. Gajeel. Hal followed Lucy's gaze and saw Levi and Gajeel standing together, with Jet and Troy next to them, who were about to cry but had no tears. A dog licks a dog, and in the end, he has nothing. Hal secretly complained in his heart. Levi noticed Hal's gaze and took the initiative to say hello. Gajeel was a little evasive, since he was beaten by Hal last time, he still had a shadow in his heart. Seeing this, Hal sighed helplessly. In fact, he was just a little angry at the time, and he didn't care much after the kid was no longer so impulsive. Otherwise, with Gajeel's previous personality, if he dared to pursue Levi, who grew up with Hal might have slapped him away with one slap. Hal walked to Levi and Gajeel, patted their shoulders and said, "Come on, I'm rooting for you." Then he turned and left. Ah! Levi seemed to have thought of something, and her face turned red instantly. "Thank you." Gajeel looked at Hal with excitement and gratitude. Jet and Troy had already been petrified. "Do you really support them being together?" Laxus came over and glanced at Hal. Seeing Laxus's eyes, Hal said helplessly, "What are you thinking? I just encourage them to take the exam." "Is that so? But the person involved doesn't think so." Laxus came to Hal to ask him to go to a meeting, and Myra was with him. The three of them walked all the way to the deepest room on the first floor. In the meeting room, Makarov was waiting for them. "Hey, Hal, you're finally back. Myra told me you'd be back today, so I waited a little longer." "President. This is a big move. Soon, the whole of Ishgar will know you. President taught you well." Hal replied modestly. "Stinky boy." Makarov laughed and scolded, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although he felt Hal was extraordinary since he was a child, he never thought he could get to this point today. It's really the blessing of the first generation. The old man secretly thanked Mavis in his heart. "Ahem, since Hal is here, we should discuss the content of this S-level assessment." Makarov cleared his throat and said solemnly. "This time, I will select 8 examinees and allow them to form teams freely. The assessment location is the Holy Land of our guild Tenro Island." As soon as this was said, everyone was in an uproar. 8 people, it's really an unprecedented number, President. Urza touched her chin. "Holy Land? I don't think I've been there yet." Hal also agreed. "So what should we do?" Laxus asked calmly. Makarov looked at his grandson with satisfaction, then looked at Hal and others present, and nodded. "You are responsible for assessing them at the first level of Tenro Island. You should understand the specific assessment standards. Teamwork, followed by strength." Urza expressed her understanding. "Yes, the focus of the first level is teamwork ability, which is also the quality that our fairy tale attaches the most importance to. As for whether you can pass it in the end, it depends on the subsequent assessment." Makarov said slowly. "So what standards should the assessors of the first level meet?" Hal continued to ask. "It's also possible to eliminate them all." Makarov answered with a serious face. "Hey!" Everyone was surprised. "Someone has to put some pressure on them." Makarov raised the corner of his mouth and said meaningfully. "Interesting." Hal raised the corners of his mouth, revealing a long-lost sinister smile. Chapter 69. "By the way, where's Gildarts? I remember he's also going to take the test." Hal asked in confusion as he walked to the back of the stage where the guild announced the S-level exam. Urza smiled and replied, "He said he couldn't maintain the dignity of an S-level in front of Kana, so he went to Tenro Island to wait for us." "That stinky daughter-slave uncle." Hal couldn't help but secretly complain in his heart. "Don't worry, we have to go to the test site in advance anyway. If we set off later, we should be able to catch up with him." Laxus said. "That's right, after all, he walks on his legs." Hal nodded, and then was shocked again. "Wait, are we leaving today?" "Of course." Laxus answered as a matter of course. "Didn't they say the test will start in 3 days?" Hal was a little puzzled. "The old man said we still have to go to the island to prepare for the test content, and by the way, sweep the grave in advance." Laxus explained. "No way, I just came back, I'm so tired." Hal looked helpless. "Stupid Hal, you're about to go on stage, don't be listless." Myra reminded him softly. "But... Myra-chan." Hal dragged out his tone like a spoiled child. Myra sighed helplessly with her hands on her waist. Hal's habit of wanting to play badly after finishing his work is really hard to change. "Hal, if you perform well these few days, I will." Myra approached Hal's ear and whispered softly. "Really?" Hal was instantly revived with full health, looking at Myra with excitement. Humph, it depends on your performance. Myra said proudly with a little shyness. I feel so strong now. Hal's revived appearance made people laugh. As expected of the pervert Hal. Laxus complained in the distance. Myra is really bold. Urza also blushed, as if she heard something steaming. Makarov did not hear the shocking words of Hal and others in the background. At this moment, he was solemnly announcing the opening of the S-level assessment. The members who meet the requirements for the S-level assessment this time. Natsu Dragneel. Greyfulp Asta. Jubian Rocks. Kana Alyapalana. Elfman Strauss. Lebima Kugadan. Felide Justin. Meister Glade. The above 8 people. Nice. I was finally selected, Happy. Natsu excitedly high-fived Happy. Hey. Happy responded. As expected, it depends on you, Loki. Grey said to Loki. I understand. Loki adjusted his glasses handsomely. Thank you for your advice, Lucy. Kana said to Lucy with a smile. Well, Kana. Lucy responded with a smile. See how powerful our thunder gods are. Fried drew out his sword and held it upright in front of him. It's really exciting, baby. Bigus stuck out his tongue, and his babies echoed him. It seems that I really have to ask you, Gajeel. Levi breathed a sigh of relief, patted her chest shyly, and said to Gajeel. Don't worry, I will definitely protect you. Gajeel said as always. Alba, will you really help me? Elfman looked at Alba next to him with a headache. Oh, seeing that you are so pitiful, I can only help you reluctantly. Alba said proudly. Why, Grey-sama? Juvia bit her handkerchief and cried. Let me help you, Juvia. Lysina said to Juvia, who had a good relationship with her in Edras. Wendy, can I ask you for a favor? Mester squatted down and held out his hand to the girl. If you think I can, Mr. Mester. Wendy was about to reach out her hand, but was interrupted by Xiaolulu. Hey! Don't shake hands with a man you just met not long ago, Wendy. Xiaolulu said angrily. Soon, everyone found their teammates and formed teams. It seemed that everyone had prepared in advance. Seeing that everyone had formed teams, Makarov smiled and made a secret signal to the back of the stage. Okay, everyone is ready, now let me introduce your examiner. Makarov announced in a loud voice. Let's go, it's our turn to go on stage. Hal urged. I see. Laxus nodded. Your opponents. Hal Mikadoa Saint. Laxus Doria. Elsa Chocolatto. Myra Strauss. And Gildarts Clevey, who is already waiting for you on Tenro Island. A total of 5 people will serve as your first round of examiners. Hey, what the hell is going on? An unprecedented lineup, except for Miston Gang, all S-class wizards are out. Macau covered his head and said in disbelief. The president actually attaches so much importance to this S-class exam. Wakaba's cigarette ash fell all over the floor. That stinky dad. Kana said disappointedly when she saw Gildarts didn't show up. Don't be like this, Kana, maybe Gildarts is just embarrassed to go on stage in front of his beloved daughter. Valian came out and comforted. So you are here. Kana complained calmly. Hey, hey. Valian responded speechlessly. The test time is set for 3 days later, and the location is Tianlang Island. Everyone, do your best to prepare. Oh. Everyone responded excitedly. Everyone in the hall was instantly excited, chatting with people around them, and the atmosphere was warm and cheerful. Only Hal on the stage had a cold look, his eyes flashed with a hint of danger, and he stared at a man in the audience. What's wrong, Hal? Myra noticed Hal's strangeness and patted him on the shoulder gently. Who is that man? Hal's eyes were still fixed on Mester, who was talking to Wendy. Mester, have you forgotten? He has always been a very strong wizard in our guild. Myra answered a little strangely. Always. Hal deliberately emphasized the pronunciation of this word, and his eyes became deeper. Interesting. Hal murmured in a low voice, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised, as if thinking about something. The magic of controlling memory, unfortunately, it is useless to me, let me see what you want to do. Chapter 70. Hal's expression did not escape Makarov's eyes. Makarov touched his sparse hair helplessly, feeling a little speechless about Mest's behavior. Hal, come here, I have something to tell you. Makarov said softly. Laxus, Urza, and Myra all looked at Hal, looking a little confused. Looking for me, President? But I have something to deal with now. Hal responded with a little hesitation. I'm looking for you about the thing you mentioned. Makarov's tone was calm. Oh. Hal was a little surprised, but decided to follow. Only Laxus and the other two were left standing there with a blank look on their faces. Why are you looking at me? Wait for him for a while, you can't really take a boat. Laxus said reluctantly, looking a little irritated. It's not impossible, so I don't have to trouble Hal. Urza responded indifferently. She didn't know Laxus' weakness of seasickness. After all, with Laxus's personality, he would never take the initiative to tell his brothers and sisters about these things. Don't worry, Urza, let's wait a while. It seems that he won't talk for too long. Myra said with a smile, trying to ease Laxus's embarrassment. Laxus secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and secretly praised Myra's thoughtfulness in his heart. On the other side, Hal followed Makarov into the room, full of doubts in his heart. President, have you discovered the problem with Mester? Mester's situation is a bit complicated. Makarov pondered for a moment, and slowly said, that guy is actually one of ours. Hal was stunned when he heard this. In fact, he didn't quite believe that Makarov would be controlled by the so-called memory magic, but because of his own specialness, he always had doubts. Seeing Hal's reaction, Makarov decided to continue explaining, Mest's current identity is indeed an undercover sent by the Council. But his previous identity was an undercover sent by our fairy tale to the Council. What? Hal looked at Makarov in shock. In order to sneak into the Council, he used magic to tamper with his memory. Now he should be an undercover sent by the Council to fairy tale. Makarov explained helplessly. This buddy, is a bit abstract. Hal tried to understand this complicated situation and felt a headache. Yeah, this matter is really tricky to deal with. Makarov also felt helpless. But anyway, Mest was a wizard of fairy tale and would not easily hurt Wendy and other companions. Okay, since you said so, I won't kill him. Hal spread his hands. However, I will impose light magic constraints on him. Once he makes a move on someone with the fairy tale seal, the magic will automatically start. Hal added, for the sake of caution. This is also a safe way. Makarov nodded in agreement. But, President, why send him to the Council as an undercover? Hal couldn't help asking. Makarov was silent for a moment, then said, this involves the top secrets of our fairy tale. I can't tell you completely before you become the President. Is it so serious? Hal frowned, a little confused. However, Hal, you are also an excellent wizard, I can tell you part of it. Makarov's tone suddenly became serious. In the future, the Alvarez Empire in the Western continent may become our enemy. Alvarez. Hal seemed to be thinking, as if he had heard this name somewhere. Well, you just need to know these, and I have my own plans for the rest. Makarov said lightly. Hal took a deep look at the old man in front of him. Makarov's firm eyes made him decide to trust him temporarily, but he also made up his mind that he would investigate the so-called Alvarez on his own in the future. I believe you, President. Hal finally said. Well, you go to Tenro Island with Laxus and the others, and focus on the present. The S-level exam in 3 days is still very important. Makarov urged. Okay. Hal nodded, then turned and left the room, slowly closing the door. In the room, Makarov looked at the map of the world of Asland on the wall and fell into deep thought. Alvarez, what a terrible opponent. I can't let the children take on this responsibility, the enemy is too powerful. Makarov muttered to himself. Chapter 71. As soon as Hal came out, he saw Laxus, Urza, and Myra staring at him curiously. Hey, don't look at me with such a gossipy look, Hal couldn't help but complain. Why did the old man look for you? You look serious when you came out, Laxus asked slowly. Well, you think too much, but I have a suspect, so I went to talk to him. Suspect? Now, the three of them are more curious. Let's talk on the way. Let's go first. We can't delay the arrangement of the S-level assessment. Seeing this, Hal decided to set off first. Hey? Are you saying that Mest is an undercover of the Council? Laxus asked in surprise. But, I really think he is our companion, Urza seemed a little confused. That's the effect of his memory magic. Then why don't you go back and kill him? Laxus raised his eyebrows, with a hint of danger in his tone. Don't worry, I haven't finished yet. In fact, that guy is an undercover sent by our fairy tale to the council. Hal explained for a long time, and everyone finally figured out the truth of the matter. Mester. This kid is really great. Laxus couldn't help but sigh. Yes, in order not to be exposed, he even deleted his memory. He really worked hard for the guild. Urza couldn't help but nod. Then is it okay for him to team up with Wendy now? Myra asked worriedly, after all, she and Wendy have a good relationship. No problem, I put a light magic binding on Mester before leaving, and the old man also said that Mester would not harm his own people. Hal comforted. Then rest assured, after all, it was arranged by the president. Myra breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Under Hal's leadership, the group flew over the sea with light magic. Soon, they finally saw an island appear in their sight, Fairy Tale Holy Land, Tenro Island. This island on the sea is shrouded in mysterious power, making it difficult to be discovered by the outside world. The appearance of the island is very unique, as if it is made up of two islands superimposed. In the center of the upper island stands a towering giant tree, with lush branches and leaves covering most of the island. The roots of the giant tree are deeply rooted in the soil of the lower island, tightly connecting the two islands, as if it is a masterpiece of nature. The lower island presents a two-layer landform. The first layer is a vast forest, lush and full of vitality. Various strange creatures live in the forest, some of which are huge, like rare and exotic animals in mythology. These creatures are closely related to the magic of the island and jointly maintain the balance of the island. The giant tree above the island is the soul of this land. Its roots not only support the structure of the island, but also contain powerful magic. This magic isolates the entire island from the outside world and becomes a self-contained world. This is also the resting place of the first president of Fairy Tale, Mavis Viviamilio. The whole island exudes an ancient and mysterious atmosphere, as if time has stopped here. This is the holy land of our guild, Tenro Island. Urza looked at the scene in front of her and couldn't help but admire. Yes, the first president is also here. I will go to visit the grave after I'm done. Laxus said with emotion. Go, Hal. Myra suddenly sat on Hal's shoulder excitedly, waving her little fist and shouting. Okay, get ready to speed up. Hal responded with a smile, and the golden magic power shone even more, turning into a ball of light and quickly approaching the island. A girl on the island was sitting on the branches of a giant tree, swinging her calves leisurely. When she saw the golden light in the sky, she showed a surprised expression on her face. Oh! Another Makarov's children are here, this time they are very young children. The girl clapped her hands gently with joy on her face. The squirrels next to her seemed to be infected by her emotions, chirping and jumping. Ah, everyone, don't make a sound, I don't want them to find me so quickly. The girl said in a panic. Oh! Several talking animals lowered their heads in disappointment, and the forest slowly returned to peace, while the girl ran to the place where Hal and others were about to land. Deep in the lower jungle of Tianlang Island, an uncle wearing a tattered green cloak was lazily fishing. Suddenly, the bait in the water moved, and he instantly became energetic. Come on, my dinner, take the bait. However, at this moment, a loud voice came from the sky, and rushed towards him at a very fast speed. Uncle, we are here! Hal shouted excitedly, and at the moment when he was about to hit the uncle, the magic power was used to slow down the fish and it didn't hit him. Even so, the strong air wave still made the stream vibrate, and all the fish swam away in fear. Ah! My dinner! Brat Hal! Gildarts burst into tears and looked at the fishing rod in his hand with a crazy look. I'm empty-handed again, 3 times this month. I can't catch any fish even in the guild's holy land, I'm a loser. Gildarts knelt on the ground and beat his chest in grief. Uncle, I'm sorry. Hal said a little embarrassedly. Don't be so exaggerated, uncle. Laxus also complained helplessly. Hal did go too far this time, I agree with Gildarts. Urza said seriously. Hey, Urza, don't forget whose power it is that made you fly to the sky. Seeing this, Hal pretended to be angry and looked at her, then suddenly released the magic. Ah! A cute girl screamed, and Urza, who lost her magic support, fell into the stream and got soaked. Puff! A blonde hunk couldn't hold back his laughter. Ha ha ha, Hal, you are really in trouble again. Myra sat on Hal's shoulder, patted his head gently and laughed. Hee hee, I told you to say me. Hal looked at the soaked Urza with a sly smile. Hal! Urza's roar echoed throughout the jungle, startling a flock of birds from the bushes. What's wrong, what's wrong? In the distance, the cute girl who was still on the road saw this and wanted to get over to watch the fun anxiously. You bastards! I haven't eaten for a day, and I rushed all the way here. Gildarts knelt on the ground and accused Hal of his crimes. However, Hal had already flown high into the sky, avoiding Urza's flying sword attack. I can't hit you, I can't hit you. Hal on the high ground was so naughty that he didn't forget to provoke. Howl! Urza shouted from below, flying swords kept flying out, but Hal dodged them flexibly, looking a little helpless. Hal grinned triumphantly for a few seconds, and suddenly a golden lightning fell from the sky, hitting Hal's head fiercely, instantly knocking him to the ground and falling into the water. Laxus! You guy! Hal, who became a drowned chicken, looked at the instigator with anger. Hey, I thought you liked the game of dodgeball very much, so I helped you. You didn't dodge it. Sorry. Laxus grinned. Asshole! Hal complained helplessly, and everyone couldn't help laughing when they saw him in such a mess, and the light laughter echoed throughout the forest. In the evening, as the sunset gradually sank to the west, everyone began to prepare the camp. Gildarts brought all the preparations for the camp in advance. Thanks to this daughter-slave, Hal and his preparations went smoothly. Myra was responsible for arranging everyone's tasks, Laxus and Gildarts went to collect firewood, and Urza and Hal were responsible for setting up the tent. Although Hal was a little unfamiliar with the job, he successfully set up the tent under Urza's guidance. Look, it's good like this. Urza clapped her hands and looked at the tent they had set up with satisfaction. Actually, I can build a house with magic, Hal said helplessly. No, it's more fun to camp together, Myra's refusal sounded next to him. Okay, Hal sighed helplessly. As night fell, Myra had already lit a bonfire. The firelight reflected everyone's faces, and everyone's expression looked particularly relaxed. Laxus was concentrating on roasting several large pieces of meat by the fire, and the aroma of the meat gradually filled the air, which aroused everyone's appetite. Wow, this smell is really unbearable. Gildarts took a deep breath exaggeratedly, staring at the barbecue. Hal swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but urged, Laxus, hurry up. We can't wait. Laxus shook his head pretentiously and said, good things are never too late, just wait a little longer, it will be ready soon. Soon after, the barbecue was finally cooked, and Laxus handed pieces of fragrant barbecue to everyone. Myra took a piece with a smile and handed it to Hal, try it must taste good, this is the sauce I made, Laxus grilled it himself. Hal took the barbecue, took a bite, and sighed with satisfaction, it's so delicious. Laxus, I didn't expect you to have this skill. Iluza also took a big bite, and said happily, indeed, this is the most delicious barbecue I have ever eaten. Gildarts also chewed the barbecue and said vaguely, to be honest, I really didn't expect Laxus to grill meat. No need to think, it must be Fried's credit again, Hal teased. Seeing everyone praising him, Laxus's mouth curled up a little, and he found an empty seat and sat down, enjoying this S-level camping activity with everyone. Everyone sat around the campfire, eating and chatting, and Hal talked about the interesting things about the guild and future plans. Gildarts told everyone about his experiences on missions, making everyone laugh. Arisa shared some of her armors of various shapes, which feasted Hal's eyes, bushy. Myra smiled gently, handed everyone water and food from time to time, but leaned on Hal most of the time. It's great, I want to eat too. Not far away, a petite girl was staring at the barbecue in Hal's hand, and tears of emotion flowed from the corner of her mouth. She gently wiped away her tears, covered her little face with both hands, and tried to keep a serious expression. No, no. She said to herself in her heart, I am the first president of Fairy Tale, how can I ask Makarov's children for food? Besides, I can't eat it either. The girl's eyes gradually dimmed, and she sighed softly. I hate ghosts. She muttered softly, with a hint of helplessness and imperceptible loneliness in her bright big eyes. Then, she pinched her cheeks gently with her little hands, trying to comfort herself. Forget it, let's just look at their happy faces. She sat on a branch, quietly approached the bonfire, listened to everyone's laughter, and felt a little satisfied. In the evening, when everyone fell asleep, she waved her little hands silently, adding a touch of magic to the bonfire, making the flames jump more happily. Chapter 72. The next morning, Hal popped his head out of the tent with sleepy eyes. He had not slept well in the tent with Gildarts and Laxus last night. Outside the tent, Myra and Urza were preparing breakfast together. Put less salt, Urza, don't put too much. Myra instructed. Oh, is that so? I thought it was like cutting vegetables, just go all out. Urza put away the salt spoon with a slight blush on her face. Really, if you add anything else, I will punish you twice as much at night, Urza. Myra teased. Damn Myra! Urza complained in a low voice. Hal heard this conversation and was curious about what happened last night, but decided not to disturb them and silently retracted his head that was sticking out of the tent. After a while, the fragrance outside the tent finally woke up Gildarts and Laxus. The two yawned and walked out. Hal followed behind, feeling a little sleepy. He listened to the conversation between Myra and Urza in the tent for half an hour. It turns out that Urza lost last night. Urza's desire to win is really unpredictable. Hal thought to himself. As for what Urza lost to Myra, Hal could only say that it was some important knowledge, which showed that Hal taught well. Gildarts yawned loudly and patted Hal on the shoulder. Boy, didn't you sleep well last night? You kept tossing and turning. Humph, Laxus snorted coldly, if you make noise for another night, I will throw you out. Hal smiled bitterly, it's strange that you slept well, because you two both snore so much. Good morning, Hal. Myra saw them coming out and greeted them gently. Hal nodded, good morning, Myra. Hey, this is too much, Myra-chan, where are Laxus and I? Gildarts complained with a look of grievance. It's time to eat, Gildarts, Laxus. Myra smiled lightly, ignored him, and turned to continue to be busy. After breakfast, Hal and Gildarts came to the open field to prepare for the S-level exam 2 days later. According to the idea of the old president, 8 tunnels need to be arranged in this cave to test everyone. 5 of them are guarded by S-level, the purpose is to test their teamwork ability, rather than directly eliminate them. The remaining 3 tunnels, 2 are used as confrontation roads, and 1 of them is eliminated. The last tunnel is set as a luck road, after all, strength is also a kind of luck. What an outrageous exam rule, I guess only our fairy tale will do this kind of exam. Hal couldn't help but complain after reading it. The point is that we can't let too few people take the second exam. We have 5 S-levels, at least 3 of them should go through. Laxus said. We'll talk about this later, Hal, get started. Gildarts said. Hey. Hal was a little puzzled. I've seen your national trade routes. Don't hide it. Get it done early and go fishing early. I had a nightmare last night. Gildarts urged. That makes sense, Hal. Urza also suddenly realized it at this time. You guys are really idiots. You didn't let me go last night, saying that you wanted to create a camping atmosphere, but now you want me to work. Please, Hal. Myra requested. Tisk, Hal decided not to bother with them. Hal quickly started to work, simply arranging a few broken caves to ensure that they would not collapse. Soon, Hal returned to the camp and fell asleep. At this time, Laxus was chopping wood, Myra was preparing dinner, and Gildarts volunteered to go fishing for everyone. Urza was running around the island in a swimsuit, and everyone was used to her way of thinking, so they just let her go. Everyone decided to go to the grave of the first generation again this evening. At night, Hal was awakened by Gildarts's voice. Ah, my fish, I don't know where the squirrel came from, every time I was about to take the bait, it would throw pine cones at me from a distance. Outside the tent, Gildarts lay on the table in pain. Uncle, don't fish if you can't catch it. Laxus said helplessly. No. You don't understand, fishing is a man's romance. Gildarts was unwilling to give up. Don't cry, Laxus sighed. I'm empty-handed again, I can't stand it. Gildarts became more and more frustrated. On a branch in the distance, a girl looked at this scene and laughed happily. Really, uncle? Hal came out and teased. You little brat, go fishing if you can. Go ahead, where did you catch the fish? Hal said without hesitation. The stream where we first met. Gildas threw the fishing rod to Hal and led the way unwillingly. What a headache! Laxus stood by and sighed, holding his forehead. How could these two guys who were stronger than him be so childish? Soon, Hal and Gildarts came to the stream where they first met. Come on, Hal. Hee, it's time for you to see the value of the Holy 10. Hal roughly observed the fish in the stream, then swung the fishing rod and shook his whole body. Ha! A large amount of magic power vibrated out, and the fish in the stream were stunned instantly. Hal used magic to lengthen the fishing rod and brought them up one by one. Gildarts looked at Hal in amazement. This is the value of the Holy 10, you said. You actually used magic to shake the fish. Are you still a human? Didn't you say fishing is a man's romance? I don't think you understand romance. Hal quickly used magic to drag dozens of fish back to the camp. So awesome, Hal! Myra exclaimed. Are you that awesome? Laxus also looked at Hal in confusion. I've already said that I'll show you the value of the Holy 10. I can't stand it. Gildarts screamed madly behind him. I feel like a loser. Not only that, uncle, you're also a bastard father who left his own daughter to live a carefree life for more than 10 years. Hal continued to finish off the opponent. Die for me. Gildarts punched him angrily. Oh, do you want to spar, uncle? Come on, Hal, it's time to let you know how awesome the old man is. Gildarts said eagerly. Come on. Hal was also eager to try. He had long wanted to compete with this seemingly unreliable uncle. Ah! Laxus was confused and couldn't understand the brain circuits of these two people. Myra didn't quite understand, but Hal once mentioned that some things are a man's dignity and cannot be easily provoked. She had suffered herself, so she nodded to show her understanding. Come on, Hal. Myra cheered Hal on the side. Damn brat, I'm getting more and more angry. Gildarts continued to play tricks. Go to the beach to play, don't disturb the first generation. Laxus suggested. Okay. Hal and Gildarts agreed at the same time. However, what they didn't know was that the first generation president, who they didn't dare to disturb, was hiding behind a big tree not far away and laughing. Mavis heard Hal and Gildarts bickering. They are so fun to get along with, a bit like Precht and Yuri. Mavis heard that the two were going to fight, with shining eyes. Okay, fight, fight. The girl waved her little fists, obviously watching the fun without minding the big things. Chapter 73. On the beach, the afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled on the golden beach of Tianlang Island, and the waves gently hit the shore. Gildarts and Hal stood at the two ends of the confrontation, their eyes met each other, and the air was filled with a tense atmosphere. Hal was more serious than ever at this moment. As one of the strongest candidates in the guild, he knew the horror of Gildarts best. On weekdays, this was an unremarkable and lustful uncle, but he was a wizard who used a flat attack and a big move. In the guild, no, even the only one Hal knew, a wizard who used super magic and basic magic. His super magic, crushing, can crush anything, whether it is the earth, the air, or even the sky, as long as he wants. Coupled with his innate powerful magic, he can be said to be a man born for magic. If he hadn't been a little bit unable to control his innate powerful magic and was easily foolish. Hal, your growth really surprised me. When I was that age, my magic power was not even 1/3 of yours. Gildarts sighed. Uncle, stop praising me. No matter how much you praise me, I won't show mercy. Hal responded. Ha ha ha. Gildarts chuckled, then his face became serious, and the terrifying white magic representing the Holy 10 surrounded him. Hal saw this scene and immediately released the golden magic representing the Holy 10, which lingered around him. The momentum of the two people collided fiercely in the air, forming an invisible pressure that made the onlookers hold their breath. On one side of the beach, Laxus leaned against a palm tree, crossed his hands on his chest, and watched coldly. His golden hair shone in the sunset, and his expression was full of belligerent excitement. Laxus's eyes were fixed on the two people in the field, looking forward to a wonderful duel. Myra stood a little further away, her hands clasped in front of her chest, her eyes full of Hal's appearance. She was wearing a simple white summer dress, and the breeze blew her long hair, revealing a hint of softness. On the coast, Urza, wearing a swimsuit, stood wet next to Myra, as if she had just returned from swimming. Above them, a white-haired ghost girl, with her hair standing upright, sat on a branch and clapped her hands happily. Her magical power seemed to turn into an illusion that could block the perception of the wizard. At this moment, Laxus only felt that the squirrel above his head was a little noisy. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the beach, and the sea breeze blew gently, bringing a hint of coolness. The confrontation between Hal and Gildarts has entered a white-hot stage. The magic power around them collided and intertwined in the air, forming a powerful energy field. Hal took the first step, and with a light step, the sand under his feet trembled violently in an instant. The terrain of the Earth Dragon is destroyed. With Hal's roar, the beach seemed to be torn apart, and a large amount of sand and gravel rose from the ground, forming a huge rock barrier, trapping Gildarts in it. Gildarts was not afraid, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He raised his right hand and easily smashed a huge rock into pieces. He was about to counterattack, but Hal's attack did not stop. Earth Dragon's shock. Hal suddenly pressed down with both hands, and the ground shook again. The shock wave spread outward with him as the center, and the rocks and dust shattered wherever it passed. Gildart's body sank, and the huge magic power gathered all over his body. His feet were as steady as a rock, and he was obviously not affected too much. A trace of praise flashed in his eyes, but Hal did not give him a chance to breathe. Earth Dragon's sting. Hal punched the ground fiercely, and the ground cracked instantly. Countless ground spikes suddenly shot out from the ground and rushed straight to Gildarts. Gildart's body lit up with white magic again, crush, and all the ground spikes rushing towards him turned into powder and dissipated in an instant. However, this moment was enough. Hal's next move was coming soon. The giant fist of the Earth Dragon. Hal waved his huge lava fist and rushed towards Gildarts with violent power. There was a whistling sound in the air, as if even the air was vibrating under the pressure of this force. A cold light flashed in Gildart's eyes, and he suddenly raised his left hand, with powerful magic surging on his prosthetic limb. Crush! He shouted, and Hal's giant fist was shattered into pieces the moment it touched Gildarts. Hal did not retreat because of this. His left hand quickly accumulated strength, and then another punch was thrown. The collapse fist of the Earth Dragon. The magic power of the Earth Dragon turned into a violent shock wave and rushed towards Gildarts. This time the power was even more violent, and even the air seemed to be torn apart. Gildarts chose to take this blow head-on, and his fist collided with Hal's collapse fist, erupting with a deafening roar. The sand under the feet of the two people it was instantly blown away, forming a huge shock wave that spread in all directions. What a strong force! Laxus narrowed his eyes, feeling the residual power of the shock wave, and showed an admiring look on his face. Myra was also a little frightened, thinking that Hal's strength was really getting stronger and stronger. At this moment, Hal took a deep breath and suddenly opened his mouth. Roar of the Earth Dragon, shock wave version. He roared, and a huge shock wave shot out of his mouth, heading straight for Gildarts. Gildarts crossed his hands in front of his chest, and the crushed magic power surrounded his body, ready to meet this attack. However, Hal did not stop. He opened his mouth again, and this time the roar was accompanied by rolling lava. Roar of the Earth Dragon, lava version. The hot lava rushed towards Gildarts along with the shock wave. Faced with such a fierce attack, Gildarts finally took real action. He suddenly jumped up, avoiding the direct attack of the lava, and then accumulated strength in the air, intending to counterattack. However, Hal's offensive did not stop. The ground of the Earth Dragon rises. As Hal's magic surged, the ground on the beach suddenly rose, forming a huge rock platform, forcing Gildarts to stagger. Dragon killing secret, Earthquake Dragon Spear. Hal's voice rang out above the platform, and then a huge spear condensed from rock suddenly shot out from the center of the platform, piercing Gildarts. The power of the spear gathered Hal's terrifying magic, with a destructive momentum. Gildarts' eyes ignited with a fiery fighting spirit. He suddenly swung his fist and shouted, "Destroy evil and show righteousness one day." With this roar, the white magic around him burst out like a violent storm, and the power to destroy the world quickly gathered on his right fist. That power was like a hurricane that swallowed everything, rushing straight towards Hal's dragon-killing secret. Under the terrifying crushing force, Hal's dragon spear was instantly knocked away. The powerful impact directly shattered the high platform created by Hal and instantly tore the earth apart. Gildarts landed steadily again in the dust, but this blow also consumed a lot of his strength. At the moment he landed, Hal launched the ultimate secret again. Dragon-killing secret earthquake. The whole beach seemed to be shaking violently at this moment, the earth cracked, and huge earthquake waves spread outward from Hal's feet. Perfect magic control covered the entire battlefield. Gildarts narrowed his eyes slightly and felt the change in Hal's power. He knew that this battle had entered the most critical moment. Don't hold back. Let me see your true strength, Hal. Gildarts whispered, and the white magic on his body burned like a flame. Urza, Myra and Laxus, who were watching the battle on the side, were full of expectation and tension. And Mavis, who was watching the excitement on the branch, showed a dull silly smile. She could feel that the next attack from Hal and Gildarts would destroy half of the island. Come on, let this land bear witness to our power. Hal's voice echoed on the beach, accompanied by terrifying magic power, and seemed extremely sacred. As his voice fell, the magic power of the two collided in the air, bursting out a dazzling light. Stop! The white-haired girl couldn't help it at this moment. She lifted the illusion magic, shouted anxiously, and drew a cute prohibition-style gesture with her hands on her head. At this moment, the battlefield stagnated instantly. Gildarts and Hal were stunned at the same time, and their eyes fell on the cute girl who suddenly appeared with a head full of hair. Her sudden appearance and the cute stopping action made Hal not know how to react for a while. Laxus, Myra, and Urza in the distance also turned their heads to look at the girl, with confusion and curiosity in their expressions. Oh no, I'm exposed. A trace of panic instantly appeared on the girl's face. She subconsciously shrank back, looking even cuter. Who are you? Gildarts put away his magic power and couldn't help asking, with a hint of doubt and surprise in his tone. Chapter 74. Ah, I actually ran in front of them, what should I do? I haven't talked to anyone for many years, but I had to stop them just now. Mavis looked a little naive at the moment, the hair on her head kept twisting, and the panic in her heart was written on her face without any concealment. You. Hal looked at the girl in front of him and felt that she was getting more and more familiar. Suddenly, he remembered the photo he saw when he was a child in the guild with Levi to organize the library. I was just passing by. You can't fight here, the little animals are very scared, that's it, goodbye. The white-haired girl seemed a little shy. After quickly speaking a paragraph, she immediately turned around and ran into the forest. Ah, this. Everyone present was a little confused for a while, and Hal tried to track the girl's trail. However, she seemed to be integrated with the nature of Tenro Island, and disappeared completely from his perception after running into the forest. What should I do? Still fight? Gildarts said with embarrassment. Stop fighting, you're going too far. Myra came over with her hands on her hips, her face serious. Especially you, Hal. If you had used that earthquake wave just now, the entire Tenro Island would have been destroyed. Sorry, I hit you too hard. Gildarts's magic is too abnormal. Hal responded with a wry smile. In fact, he didn't use his full strength. He hadn't used the magic of his left and right hands yet. After all, the coverage of these magics is too large, and it is not suitable to let go in a place like Tenro Island. If you had known earlier, you should have lifted the land on the seabed as a battlefield. Laxus walked over and said. Really smart, Laxus, tell me in advance next time. Hal joked. Let's go back to have a meal, and then go to the grave. Laxus replied, and then turned and left. However, Urza seemed to be thinking about something at this moment. Who do you think that girl is? I don't know at all, maybe she really just passed by. Gildarts responded. You believe everything she says? Are you fooled by me, uncle? Hal raised his eyebrows and teased. Hey? Hal, I was holding back. Do you really think my magic is only like this? Gildarts fought back unwillingly. Tisk, who isn't? Hal laughed and retorted. Stop arguing. Let's talk about it after the president comes. Myra quickly grabbed the two of them to stop them from arguing. It can only be like this. Urza pondered. Everyone walked back to the camp. Those who needed to chop wood chopped wood, those who needed to fish fished, and those who needed to cook cooked, as if the previous battle had never happened. However, at this moment, in the depths of the jungle, a black-haired young man woke up faintly. He covered his head and frowned. Such a strong magic! Is this island also going to be affected by the war? The black-haired young man said with sadness. He looked at the sky in the distance, which was the direction of Hal and others, and slowly sensed it. It turns out that there are only a few powerful wizards playing here. Go back to sleep. The black-haired young man relaxed and lay down again, and the quiet night fell. His body seemed to blend into the darkness and disappeared into the forest. In the camp, Hal was eating with everyone when he suddenly looked into the depths of the dark jungle. Hal? What's wrong? Myra put down her chopsticks and asked curiously. Hal felt it carefully, shook his head, and continued to eat a bite of rice. Nothing, just now I seemed to feel someone was exploring us, but now I can't feel it. What? Could it be the girl just now? Laxus said with some surprise. No, that girl is mysterious, but her magic is not as dark as what I just felt. And Hal recalled, then shook his head and said. This island really has many mysteries. Urza also said with some concern. Don't think too much. There are 5 of us here. No one can help. Myra-chan, have another bowl. Gildarts waved his hand nonchalantly and continued to eat. That's right. Let's go to visit the grave of the first generation after dinner, otherwise the president will be angry when he comes. Myra also agreed. After a while, everyone set off and followed Gildarts to slowly go deeper into the island. You guys, none of you know where the tombstone of the first generation is. Gildarts said a little exaggeratedly. I can't help it. This is my first time here. Fortunately, you lead the way. Hal responded. Hal, this stinky boy knows how to be humble now. Gildarts laughed and teased. I have always been humble, thank you. Hal fought back unyieldingly. Hehe, I still like your arrogant look. Gildarts smiled wickedly. Said. Myra glanced at Gildarts warily. Gildarts was terrified by the look. What are you thinking, Myra? Really, children nowadays are beginning to mature early. Be careful that the children you are talking about may take your strongest position one day. Hal was a little speechless, but he still didn't forget to retort. Ha 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 ha, I am super looking forward to that day. Gildarts responded with a big laugh. Everyone soon came to the grave of the first generation. The center of the tombstone exuded a golden light, which looked solemn and mysterious. This is a special magical tombstone, symbolizing the majesty and solemnity of the first generation president of Fairy Tale. Urza and Myra held the flowers picked from the island, gently placed them around the tombstone, and carefully decorated the tombstone. The flowers looked particularly bright and moving under the reflection of the golden light. At the same time, Hal and Laxus divided the work tacitly, and used their own brooms to carefully sweep the fallen leaves near the tombstone. Gildarts stood aside, smiling and directing everyone's work like an elder. Although everyone was noisy at ordinary times, at this time, they all silently accepted Gildarts's arrangements. Soon, the cemetery was completely renewed, and the golden magic light in the center of the tombstone became brighter, as if responding to everyone. At this time, Mavis quietly appeared in the shadow of the nearby trees, watching everyone's every move with a smile. She nodded continuously with satisfaction, and her cute aho hair swayed up and down with the movement. As expected of Makarov's children, our companions of Fairy Tale. Mavis said softly, with a gentle smile on her face. Chapter 75. 2 days later, in the sea near Tianlang Island, a huge ship slowly approached in the waves, with the striking Fairy Tale exclusive emblem printed on the sail. Finally here. I will never take a boat again. Natsu held the railing, his face pale, and the pain of seasickness still did not subside. What a lazy guy! Gray complained while walking naked, swaying around, completely ignoring the eyes of others. Mr. Gray. Wendy covered her eyes shyly, her cheeks slightly red. Asshole Gray. Don't let Wendy see such a disgusting thing. Xiaolulu suddenly exploded and pounced on Gray angrily. This is Gray's daily life. Habi shrugged helplessly, and he had long been accustomed to it. At this time, Xiaolulu and Habi had met their respective parents and understood the difficulties of the Exit family. Although Xiaolulu once found it difficult to let go, with the company of Habi and the guidance of Habi's parents, she has gradually accepted these realities and become a seemingly ordinary little white cat. Tisk, Urza is not here, and the S-level guys are not here either. When will you be unhappy now? Gray continued to walk the bird without caring, completely ignoring the reactions of everyone. Ah, I'm so angry. Xiaolulu was so angry that her hair exploded. Gray-sama is like this. But Juvia still wants to watch it alone. Juvia was on the side, wearing a swimsuit, secretly glancing at Gray, her cheeks red. Is this the fairy tale you mentioned, Gajeel? Suddenly, a black kitten came over, his paws and ears were white, and he looked very cute. Gehi, get used to it, partner. Gajeel hugged Lily's little shoulders without caring, with his usual smirk on his face. Gajeel and Lily met one day ago. Lily was traveling at that time. It happened to be a thunderstorm in Magnolia. He was so scared that he covered his ears and huddled in the corner of the street. This scene happened to be seen by Gajeel. How could Gajeel let go of this cat he had always wanted? He went forward without hesitation and grabbed Lily back. Although Lily tried to resist, the continuous thunder made him unable to resist, and was finally taken back to the guild by Gajeel. The next morning, Lily woke up under the enthusiasm of everyone patting his head and scratching him. He angrily used magic to grow bigger, trying to drive away this group of perverted humans, and soon started a fierce fight with Gajeel. In one day, they fought more than a dozen games, and they appreciated each other's strength and character more and more. In the end, they fell in love, and Lily also became a member of Fairy Tale and followed Gajeel to Tenro Island. Ha 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 ha! Fire Dragon and Sky Dragon, remember to bring your cats to duel with my Lily and see who is the strongest. Gajeel looked at Natsu provocatively. What did you say? Ugh! Natsu wanted to refute, but he was unable to support himself due to seasickness. No. Wendy looked at Gajeel with tears in her eyes, almost crying. What are you doing, Loki? Lucy on the side was pushing Loki's face away, resisting his approach. Our love flower can finally bloom again, Lucy. Loki looked at the fallen Natsu with a smirk, pushed his glasses, and his eyes were full of love. No, Natsu. Lucy looked at her fallen companion helplessly. Just as everyone was playing, a sacred island gradually emerged on the distant horizon. Tenro Island. We're here. Makarov walked out of the air-conditioned captain's room carefully and announced, the S-level exam officially begins. After saying that, he immediately retracted into the cabin. Hey, hey! Everyone complained in unison. At the moment when everyone complained, Fried also ran out of the captain's room, his whole body covered with spells, dark words wings. As the magic was activated, Fried spread his dark wings and flew to Tenro Island with Bigusro who controlled the soul doll. Natsu, let's go! Happy immediately reacted, grabbed the weak Natsu, and followed Fried. Damn Natsu! Grey was not to be outdone. He concentrated his magic power on his feet, stepped on the gradually freezing sea surface and rushed all the way, and did not forget to grab Loki. Everyone showed their magical powers and headed for Tenro Island. In the air above Tenro Island, Hal looked down at the people on the sea with a smile on his face. Not bad, the reaction is pretty fast. Hal said. Strangely, Fried didn't set up the spell on the ship. Laxus, wearing a black cloak, was a little confused. Maybe it's because he's afraid of the heat. Ever since he got the magic air conditioner, Fried has fallen in love with it. Ha, Hal said easily. Laxus, wearing a black cloak, cast a puzzled look. Let's go, I want to meet Kana. I haven't competed with her for a long time. I don't know how much she has improved over the years. Hal turned around and prepared to leave. I want to meet that boy Natsu. He always has an elusive power. Laxus said. You noticed it too. Hal stopped and revealed a hint of surprise in his tone. Natsu. Wake up. On the beach of Tenro Island, Happy was rubbing Natsu's face with his cat claws frantically. This trick was taught to him by Hal. As long as the speed is fast enough, anyone who is seasick can wake up. Happy. Natsu woke up slowly with a bruised face. Hurry up, Natsu. Fried has already gone in, Grey and others are behind, we have to catch up quickly. Happy urged. Oh. Natsu responded, and he and Happy quickly chose a cave that looked like Urza and rushed in. Deep in the cave, Hal sat cross-legged on a wooden lotus platform, his eyes slightly closed, meditating and practicing quietly. He recently discovered that his magic power was getting closer and closer to breaking through that barrier. However, he soon heard slight footsteps and a strange sound of stepping on milk. Hal slowly opened his eyes and looked at the visitor. Natsu. Hal's voice was calm. Haru. Happy couldn't help but screamed. How could this happen, Natsu, we? Happy was a little difficult to accept the situation in front of him. Shut up, Happy. What if I meet Hal? As the son of Igneel, I will never back down. Natsu ignited a raging flame, and his fighting spirit was high. Hal admired in his heart, but his eyes were still calm, and he stood up indifferently. Since Listena's death, I rarely compete with you, Natsu. Hal said calmly. Haha, Hal. Today I will show you what I have achieved in the past 2 years. Natsu said confidently. Come on, Natsu. Hal still responded calmly. The duel between the two was about to start, and the air in the cave seemed to become scorching. Natsu's flames roared like an angry dragon, the roar of the fire dragon, the iron fist of the fire dragon, and the wing attack of the fire dragon came one after another. The air was full of scorching breath, and the flames seemed to burn the entire cave to ashes. Each move contained Natsu's full explosive power, his anger was burning, and his fighting spirit was burning. Hey hey hey! Natsu roared, his arms wrapped in the flames of the fire dragon, and instantly launched the Dragon Slayer secret art, Red Lotus Explosion Blade. 2 sharp blades formed by flames swung wildly at Hal, and the slash of flames cut through the air, forming a whirlwind of flames. However, Hal still stood there. Under his feet, the solid magic barrier formed by the magic power of the Earth Dragon completely dissolved every attack of Natsu. Neither the roaring flames nor the waving blades could shake Hal in the slightest. Hal's eyes were still simple and calm, as if all these attacks were just a breeze blowing across the earth. Seeing this, Natsu did not retreat at all. He knew that he could not give up, and more power surged from his body. He gathered his strength again, used the broken fangs of the fire dragon, and his hands were wrapped in hot flames, and he waved his hands towards Hal in claws. Natsu, your strength has improved a lot. Hal said calmly, and he felt Natsu's burning determination. However, as soon as the words fell, Hal's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Natsu, and the next moment, he appeared behind Natsu. What? Natsu was startled. Before he could react, Hal had already slapped Natsu's back with a light palm, instantly extinguishing all of Natsu's flames. Hal's palm wind carried the calmness and heaviness of the earth, turning Natsu's attack into invisible. You are not enough. Hal's voice was still calm, but there was a hint of severity in it. You didn't control your power well, but just burned blindly. This kind of flame is not pure enough. Before this battle, we also went on a mission together. In my opinion, you have hardly ever fought with all your strength. This is certainly due to me, but you are also too confident in your own flames. Hal said seriously. This is a good opportunity. Let me see your determination, Natsu. I will be determined to kill you. As soon as the voice fell, Hal's body burst into golden earth magic, and the magic made the sand and gravel around him float in the air and tremble constantly. Hal's body was gleaming with golden magic, burning in the air like a blazing sun. The surrounding sand and leaves seemed to sense this powerful force and began to float in the air in disorder. Empty. Natsu felt an unprecedented sense of oppression coming towards him. This feeling was like being pressed directly on his chest by a heavy mountain, making it difficult for him to breathe. Hal's voice seemed to penetrate his heart. You are not enough, Natsu. You did not control your power well, but just burned blindly. This flame is not pure enough. His words were like a sharp sword, piercing Natsu's heart, making him question himself in an instant. Natsu's flame kept burning, trying to compete with Hal's golden magic, but the flame seemed insignificant in front of such a powerful force. Natsu began to waver in his heart. He had never felt such a deep sense of powerlessness, and even began to doubt whether he was qualified to bear the glory of Igneel. His eyes flashed with the figures of Lucy, Happy, and Lysina, those people he had vowed to protect and his life and death companions. But at this moment, facing Hal's terrifying power, he actually felt a little fear. Can I really defeat Hal? Natsu's heart was filled with endless doubts and uneasiness, and his hands trembled involuntarily. But it was at this moment that he recalled Igneel's teachings, the glory of being the son of a dragon, and Hal's calm and powerful eyes. Lucy, and the resurrected Lysina, have he really done many things that are worthy of their pride? He realized that he could no longer hesitate or escape. I can't give up. Natsu gritted his teeth, and the fear in his heart was gradually replaced by burning determination. He thought of those important people, those who fought side by side with him, and those he vowed to protect. I want to win. Natsu's heart ignited a more blazing flame. He took a deep breath, and the flames in his body suddenly became violent, gushing out, almost tearing his body apart. But this time, he did not retreat again. Hal still stood there, and the golden magic was still dancing around him, with unshakable majesty and power. At this moment, Natsu made a shocking decision. He took a deep breath and sucked Hal's earth magic into his body. Natsu's body swelled in an instant, and the magic in his body became uncontrollable in an instant, as if it was about to tear him apart. But Natsu did not give up. He clenched his teeth tightly, clenched his fists tightly, and forcibly suppressed the huge power in his body, trying to merge Hal's earth magic with his own fire magic. What? Hal's simple and calm eyes fluctuated for the first time, and he looked at Natsu in front of him with some shock. He could feel that his magic was being absorbed, constantly destroying and merging in Natsu's body. At this moment, Natsu seemed to hear Ignil's voice and see the expectant eyes of his companions. His determination reached its peak, and the fear in his heart was finally completely dispelled. The power of fire and earth blended in his body, forming a new power. The dragon's lungs can spit out lava, gathering the hot lava from the body, forming a deadly breath like a volcanic eruption, devouring all enemies blocking the way. The dragon's scales can absorb and carry the power of the earth, fusing hard rocks with flames, making the scales as hard as a rock, and at the same time having a scorching temperature. Any enemy that touches it will be burned to ashes. The dragon's claws can wrap around lava, releasing the hot and powerful lava power. Every swing of the claws is like the earth breaking apart, which can completely tear the enemy apart and burn them to ashes. Lava Dragon. Natsu. Hal looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He could feel that Natsu had completely integrated the power in his body. It's amazing, Natsu, how did you do it? It's common sense that a dragon slayer cannot devour magic of other attributes. The human body cannot withstand such a terrible backlash. Hal looked at Natsu in amazement. The Lava Dragon's Dragon Slayer magic combines the tenacity of the earth and the destruction of fire, forming an ancient and powerful force. This is the ultimate embodiment of Natsu's transformation into a lava dragon. At this moment, Natsu's body surface was covered with hot magma and hard rock scales. The scales showed a color of deep red and black, like lava flowing in the body, emitting a scorching light. Each scale was like a rock extracted from the depths of the earth, flashing with a flame-like brilliance, and seemed indestructible. Natsu's eyes became as hot as magma, and golden flames burned in his pupils, revealing endless anger and power. His arms were wrapped in boiling lava, and his fingertips were like sharp rock blades, as if every swing could bring destructive power. The back was made of molten lava. The protrusions made of rocks, and rocks rose like a volcanic tremor, and every movement carried the power of an earthquake. Every step he took, the ground under his feet would be burned and cracked by the hot lava, leaving charred marks. Lava Dragon Natsu, officially debuted.